What's up, guys? Before we jump into the last episode of season 2, I just wanted to share with you guys some great news. We are going on tour. If you want me to come to your city, all you gotta do is text me right here so I know where to go. Other than that, please enjoy the season finale of season 2. And I'll see you guys next year.
When my career was just starting and I saw how broken it all was, I was so bummed out, and I was talking to God and I was like, I don't know what to do here. I don't want to do this. God was like, Zach, you're not wrong. It's very broken, but I, God, am going to fix it. I'm going to make a better version of this, and I'm going to use you to go and do that. Me amongst many other people. Here's what you got to do, Zach. You got to go sail on this broken boat, knowing full well it's going to sink, but you got to ride this boat so you can build up your resources and reputation. And simultaneously, I will be giving you downloads of the blueprint of what the new boat is supposed to look like. You'll kind of be building that boat while you're riding this boat, and then at the right moment, you're going to jump ship and you're going to take as many people with you, 2 by 2, and go create a better version of what this unfortunately kind of has always been, which is a broken version of itself.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray, I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh.
It's not often I sit down with somebody and they say something that makes me think.
Bro, this was great.
I love you guys.
Will you give me something to think about?
My own damn way.
I had a lot of fun on this interview.
I can't tell you how unbelievably excited I am. Welcome back to the George Janko Show. Guys, I'm with an absolute legend, Zachary Levi. I have got introduced to you by my sister at such a pivotal moment in my life. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. I would hope you would only be honest with me.
Yes. Yeah, by the way, I love how you're sitting. You're making me want to even get more comfortable.
I just kind of, you know what, I always feel like we sit too sedentary too often, and sometimes I just get like not restless leg, but it's like I'm constantly shifting, and so if I can just like get myself sat and more comfortable, better posture,
You can think better.
all the
Be
things,
more-
all the things.
I love that. And by the way, thank you. I feel so much
You're
more
welcome.
comfortable.
Look at that. Glad I made you feel comfortable in your own home.
I was traveling, and my sister was like downloading things on an iPad for me, because I have such bad anxiety on planes, like insane. Thank God, not anymore. I realized that it was like a controlling type of thing, and now
100%.
turbulence doesn't affect me.
100%.
But at that time, it was like wildly rocking me, where I would sweat. There's actually a picture I'll even post. I passed out on the plane once. I took an edible. That was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. But I remember I just look, and this was like about, I want to say 3.5 years ago, and I just see this show called Chuck, and I'm like, what the hell is Chuck? And she goes, you've never heard of Chuck? And I go, Chuck? I'm like, what is it about? She goes, I'm not even gonna tell you, just watch the first episode. Bro, this is recently, and it threw me back to the days where shows were great. There was no more crap in there like that was not funny or weird, or like, when I watched it, I felt like I time traveled back to my favorite time of days. And it really put me in such a great mood. It made all my travels like so nice. So one day I told myself, I was like, God willing, one day I'll be able to sit with him and I'll tell him, like, bro, you took a lot of anxiety away from me. But I used to watch you be a little secret agent, dude.
Well, I thank you for sharing that with me, man. Chuck was such an incredible adventure, like an incredible blessing that God put into my life, and definitely launched. I was working prior to that, but that was really the show that kind of, I guess, put me into being the lead of a television show. Prior to that, I was a lead, but I wasn't the lead. And, people gave me more recognition and gave me a platform to really build the rest of my career on. But it was really hard. Like, that show we shot it, here in LA, at Warner Brothers a lot, but also around in the Valley. The Buy More was... let's see, we're like right around Woodman. I feel like it was right up this way, or Canoga or something. Like, there's a shopping center, and
so
the front of the Buy More was in that shopping center. I wish I could remember where, but not too far from here, literally. The exterior of it, anyway. The interior of the store was actually one of our sound stages at Warner Brothers. But it was such an incredibly, hard-fought show, because we never had enough time and never had enough money. And we were constantly, every year we were on the chopping block. Like, we almost got canceled every single year. So had you been a fan during that, it was a roller coaster. Like, to all of our Chucksters out there who stayed with us, who believed in us, who loved us, like, they really kept us going, and they kept us going for 5 years. That and NBC's development slate just continued to come in subpar for them to replace us, right? Had they had a development slate in those 5 years, where they had multiple shows. They were like, this is such a banger, and it's definitely going to do better than Chuck. Then we would have probably got axed. But fortunately for us, we had just enough of a viewership, while, by the way, television viewership was already starting to dwindle, because keep in mind, we were like within 2 years. Let's see, we started in 2007. We went to 2007 and 2012. Within a few years of us starting to air on television, and by the way, at this point, we already had TiVo, right? So everybody was already DVRing. Which
was that good or bad for you?
It was bad. It was bad. It's very bad.
But why?
Because the only reason why traditional television worked was because of ads. So if all of a sudden everyone can just blow through all the ads, they don't mean anything. So everyone in network television and cable were like, whoa, and they're even right now, they're still trying to figure it out, which is why so many people went to streaming, because if you can just charge people a subscription, now you're not having to depend on Pepsi and Toyota and everybody else paying you millions and millions of dollars, because you have a wrapped audience from the time you end this act to the time you start the next or whatever. You got that commercial break, right? Like in the 80s, in the 90s, before we had TiVo, so like peak television viewership of population and popularity, I mean, dude, you would have like, the show Cheers when there were only 3 channels, right? So like in the 80s, pre-cable, or really pre-cable becoming what it became, and let's say, Fox came in, but like Fox was still like a little channel compared to NBC, ABC, and CBS. Those 3 juggernauts would have, like any given show, Cheers on any, given night, would have 75% of the viewing audience of the United States.
Wow, yeah.
Because
wild.
that's what your options were. You had 3 options, and of that time slot, it was like, are we going to watch Cheers or whatever ABC or CBS had at the time? And so that's how network television, and then ultimately cable with advertising models, that's how they made so much money. And then as soon as TiVo came around, DVR, that was the end. It took a long time for people. Again, they're still kind of like tap dancing and rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, trying to like squeeze as much money as they can out of advertisement. Live still works because you still like you're
T-bowing
watching the
live,
Super
yeah.
Bowl. You're not trying to watch that afterwards. Everyone's been spoiled at that point. So that's why you can get incredible amounts of money for commercials during live events, particularly ones that are massive events. But with Chuck, we were already getting hit by people zipping through commercials on television in general. And then within a couple of years of us doing the show, like by 2010, Netflix was going from not just, a subscription where they're sending out DVDs, but now they had their streamer. And all of a sudden they were like, well, we don't have a lot of original programming, so let's go license a bunch of shows. And so Chuck became one of the very first shows that was both, actually it might have been, we were both airing on television and streaming on Netflix at the same time. So then we started getting an audience on Netflix, but it never counted toward our numbers on NBC. So we were just kind of barely, hanging on there. But anyway, just to wrap a bow on all of that, just to land the plane on Chuck, and what you just shared with me. Even though it was hard fought, even though I went through like a lot of trauma making that show, just because of where I was in my life and all of the ways that Hollywood is. Hollywood's Hollywood. It's not a very humane place.
You don't say.
Yeah, I know, right? And even very good people are still kind of in a system that's fucked up. And so like, they're not necessarily treating you with a tremendous amount of empathy, because they're not getting treated with empathy, because the system's not created for empathy or really caring about humanity at large, or even the finished product. That's a whole other conversation. But despite all of that, what God made through us, me and every one of my incredible cast members and all of our crew and our writers and producers and everybody, and all of our executives, what all that created was a show that if I had a nickel for every time somebody like just shared something like that with me, I would have a lot of fucking nickels. I would have a lot of nickels. I don't know what that would be in actual dollars, but in the hundreds of dollars, and that's a lot of nickels, right? That's 50 nickel. No, hold on. No, not 50, 20 nickels. 20 times 5? Yes. 20 nickels per dollar, easily in the hundreds of dollars, maybe in the thousands. Because there is something about that show. There's something about that character and the characters around him and the heart. Like, I always wanted to. One of the reasons I loved playing that role is, I was barely acting. I basically just got to show up and be my nerdy self and play video games. And like with Josh Gomez, my best friend, who was my best friend during all that time, we'd play video games. And we had a wonderful family making that show. But the crux of it was this guy who cared about doing the right thing no matter what. No matter what. For his friends, for his family, even for the bad guys. Like, never wanted to kill anybody. He only wanted to drink everybody.
Goku. That's the same vibe. I love that.
Yeah. I don't actually know. Is that Dragon Ball?
You never watched Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Get out.
Well, it's been great.
What's up, guys? I have something absolutely incredible to share with you guys. And especially for people like me that's super into Dr. Jordan Peterson. His brand new series, The Gospels, just released on Daily Wire Plus. And let me tell you something, if you watch this, it's something you're never gonna forget. If you're wondering what The Gospels are, it's his continuing chapter. He already did the Exodus, he's done Genesis. In The Gospels, it's a 10-part series that breaks down what Jesus was doing with the resurrection, his birth, his ministry. He sits there at a table and he basically discussed this with scientists, professors. And what I love about the series is that they break it down in a historical way, a spiritual way, and an intellectual way. And it's suitable for anybody. Somebody like me who's really into the faith and wants to just dive in deeper, or it's for somebody who's like, I don't really even believe in this, but I could sit and just watch how these people discuss it. It's not only this catalog, but all of the stuff that Dr. Jordan Peterson has been working on. And that catalog could be found on Daily Wire Plus, including his Master Life collection, which dives into life's most important topics, including masculinity, marriage, mental health, and developing a life vision. And here's the best part. Right now, Daily Wire Plus is giving 30% off. Use code Janko30, and that's including everything in his library. Hit the link in the description below before it's too late. Well, think about this. That's 30% off crazy wisdom. Act now. Hit the link in my description. Get started with Dr. Jordan Peterson's The Gospels.
Yeah, you just want to hug Chuck, you know? He's so pure and like, it's so much fun to watch.
And I think there's something that's actually quite biblical in that, and it's something that I've always tried to kind of carry myself in, which is, and it's very difficult because I think a lot of Christians or religious peoples, like, it's very easy for us to like and love the people that like and love us and that are doing life the way we approve of, but we don't like to love or extend grace or mercy or forgiveness or empathy toward anyone who we would deem to be a monster or evil or whatever that is. And yet Christ said, what is it to love those who love you? That's easy. That's not, I'm asking you to love your enemies and pray for your persecutors. Like that's love. Amen. And I think that, the way that Chuck never wanted to actually kill any of the bad guys because he always just saw like, well, yeah, but they're human. There's a human in there. Even if they are some Russian thug that just murdered a bunch of humans, it's like, but maybe we can save him. Maybe we put him in a prison long enough after he got tranked and woke up. He's like, what am I doing here? And all of a sudden, and there's a change of heart because he was Russian, but now, he was bad guy, but now he's good guy. I don't know. But that is cooked into the whole show. And so I think that because of that, people, if you have anxiety on a plane, it's a balm, it's a salve. It like is something that just makes you feel warm. So anyway,
there's so many things my heart is just exploding about. One, I also saw you on a podcast and you were talking about giving grace and extending grace, right? For you to receive grace. And I was actually just preaching this to my sister. I said, the reason Jesus says judge so you are not going to be judged, it's not because
judge not so that you would not be judged.
And it's not because he's not going to judge you. He's the father of judge. He's saying that if you're judging people around you, you're going to do that to yourself. And I realized that every time I was judging other people, I'm harder on myself. So imagine if I could give that grace to him, that when I'm going through something, I'm going to practice that by others, and I could do it for myself as well.
Yeah.
And also I find it very fascinating that we both know during that time it was a turbulence for you. But while God was sharpening you, he was setting so many other people free.
Yeah, totally.
That's a beautiful thing.
Totally.
I would love to jump into your mind because like when me and her get to research the guests that we're having on our show, I always like put in my mind, like what category can I put this guest under? Exciting, a fighter. And me and her both agreed, dude, you have such a childlike heart. And it's like a real thing. And I just want to get to know what your turbulence were. And what was it that God's grace that got you to where you're at now, but to be so like kind and you are who you hang out with. I mean, I just met your girl right now and she's just beautiful inside and out. And so like, how do you manage to walk on the storm when you know yourself, even your surroundings are like vicious?
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the kind words and the and I wouldn't disagree that of the various things that make us who we are, and there are many. Certainly one of a very strong descriptive nature of me would be to have a bit of a childlike heart. There's no doubt about it. And it's evident in the roles that I've gotten cast in, including Shazam. Literally it's a child who has a magic word that makes him an adult superhero, but is still a kid inside. All of that is, there's no coincidence to that. That's who God made me, and these are the roles that he's brought into my life. Chuck as well, has this innocence to him that, and it's not a naivete. But although, I think sometimes I guess one could attribute it to that, but I think by and large, it's just always the heart that God, since I was a kid. I mean, just the heart that I've had and that I was born with and intentionally born with. I think, like one example, I'll give two examples, both these, kind of moments that happened to me when I was growing up, and both actually related to Hollywood in some way. So when I was like, how old are you?
I'm 31.
31. So I'm 44. In the 80s, I think like mid to late 80s, there was a TV show called Life Goes On. And it was a kind of like an hour drama, about a family, husband and wife, older daughter, and a younger son. But the son and daughter were, a year apart or whatever, 2 years apart. They both went to high school together. The son had Down syndrome. His name was Corky. On the show, his name was Corky. And he was a real actor with Down syndrome. Because, Downs is a spectrum. I mean, you have much more higher functioning people with Downs and less so. And it was like the first time ever on television, as far as I knew, that they were like, yeah, we're actually going to show Down syndrome in a very real light using an actor that has Down syndrome. And I'm 7 or something at the time. And I'm with my mom, my sisters, and we're over at a friend of my mom's place. And maybe her daughter was, no, I don't think her daughter was born at the time. But anyway, we're all sitting around and we're watching this TV show. I have no idea what Down syndrome is. But I'm 7 and I see this kid and I'm like, that's pure. That's, when you see almost anyone with Downs, like there's a, talk about a childlike heart. I mean, there is nothing but just like love and just pure and like, And as a kid, I was like, oh my God, there's no deceit. There's no guile. They just are like living and loving and they just want to love. And then I would watch this kid in a scripted show, but still nonetheless, I can tell that this person is so pure. And also these kids in his high school on the show that are bullying him are just destroying me. I start to bawl, like cry so hard, like weeping, so much so that my mom and her friend had to take me into the other room because I was just upsetting everybody that was watching the TV show.
And they're like, shut up, we don't have Tebow.
I'm like, what is that? And they bring me to the other room and they're like, Zach, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm crying and I'm crying. I'm like, it's not fair. 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 And fast forward to I'm now 12 or 13 or something. Forrest Gump comes out. And I'm watching Forrest Gump. No. And which is already just an epic movie.
Your parents are like, we're not taking him to this movie. He could go watch this on his own.
No. I mean, so there have been many years in between these things, right? I don't think my mom was thinking this was going to trigger me in the same way, but sure enough, I'm watching this movie. It's already such an epic movie. One of my favorites for sure, and for so many reasons. But, about halfway through the movie or whatever, Forrest finishes talking to, the movie's all been like recapping kind of because he's sitting on this park bench waiting for the bus to go see Jenny for the first time in many years. And then, so we get through all that stuff. And also there's already stuff that's like, heavy. And I was like, oh, it's getting me. And I'm kind of, tearing up a little bit, but I'm all right. And then the lady on the bench is like, oh, you're just trying to go there. You can go there right now. And he runs over there and he runs to Jenny's place. And, there's Jenny and they're catching up and there's no bitterness with him. Like, this is the love of his life, and she literally left him, and like all of these various
in a brutal way.
In a brutal way. But no, there's no bitterness. He's just nothing but love. And then he looks, and there's Jenny's son watching Sesame Street with his head all cocked like this, and he's like, you got a son? And she's like, yeah, that's my son. His name is Forrest. She goes, well, that's my name. And she goes, I know. I named him after his daddy. And then there's this moment where he looks at little Forrest and he puts together that this is his son. And like for the first time in the movie, you really start to see Forrest break down and cry. It makes me emotional every single time I even talk about it. And then he looks at her and he goes, is he like me? And he's afraid. And in that moment, y'all, we as an audience have just sat through him being ridiculed and berated and made fun of and insulted for hours, an hour and a half or whatever up to that point. And him just seemingly oblivious to it. But in that moment, Zemeckis and Hanks and they're telling you like, oh, no, he's known all along. He knows exactly who he is. And he's known exactly why everybody treats him like garbage. And he loves them anyway. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't stop crying because I wanted him to be real. I wanted there to be an example of such a wonderful human being in the world. And I literally, bro, I sprung a leak and I could not stop. I was crying like I cried when I was 7 watching Life Goes On. People in the theater, we were in Tahoe on vacation. And there's people looking up at like what, like, are these people beating their son? Like, why is he crying? This is not normal, right? And I cried all the way through the rest of the movie and everybody dying and Uncle and Lieutenant Dan comes back, he's got 2 legs and all of the things. I cry all the way through the credits, all the way back to our family van, all the way back to the hotel. My mom and stepdad are like, what is wrong with this kid?
Is that why you wanted to be an entertainer? That you watched something that impacted you so much and you're like, dude, I want to do that one day. I want to impact somebody with an art form.
No, so when I was, I think that when all of us around 3 or 4, it's different for everybody, but like the first couple of years of life, you're alive, but you don't really remember any of it. You're just kind of like existing, bouncing off of walls and pooping your diapers. But then around 3 or 4 is when like the movie starts, like your awareness kind of comes online, And as far as I can tell, right around that time, so let's say, 4 years old, and my awareness, my consciousness kind of like clicks on. I felt like I just knew things, not cerebrally, like I didn't know them as like thoughts per se, but like I knew them in my knowing, in my soul. Almost as if like before our soul comes down and inhabits our body, like like what if there's like a mission select screen, and it's like your mission, should you choose to accept it, is like, here's all of these parameters, here's all these things. And you're like looking at your options and like, yeah, okay, cool, I want to do that one. Because when I was around 4, first I was like at some Sunday school or something, and somebody, like, I knew that there was a God who loved me. I just knew it. I didn't need someone to explain that to me, although someone did try to explain it to me. And even though I'm a toddler, they're like, so there's God. And I was like, no, yeah, I got it. I'm good.
That's a blessing.
Like totally tracking, good. I knew that I was going to be an actor, not even that I wanted to be, although I also wanted to be. But my desire to be an actor was never... like it was more of like just a literally like a calling to my life. Like this is what you chose before you, or was chosen for you, or whatever.
That's what God sent you on earth with.
Yeah.
I believe that.
And I went to my parents, by the way. Like I went to them and I would tell them I'm going to be, by the way, I don't even know that I knew what an actor was at that time. Again, I didn't know these cerebral words. But then, a few years later, all of a sudden I'm watching TV and I'm putting together, those people are pretending to be other people. John Ritter as Jack Tripper on Three's
my
Company.
favorite.
Oh my God.
I watch that every night with my mother.
Bro, for real. Like one of my favorites.
He's the greatest comedian. You guys have to watch Three's Company.
He was so good. Oh, I miss him.
Rest in peace. He was I feel like Chandler Bing stole a lot. Not stole, but learned
listen,
a lot
there's
from...
nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Even John Ritter was emulating all of the greats that he grew up watching and all that stuff, right?
He was the great.
Well, but I remember then being like, oh, yeah, that's the thing. Like the thing that I know that I'm supposed to do, that's the thing right there. That's what I'm going to do. And I remember my mom being like, oh, that's real cute, honey. And I was like, no, I'm going to buy you a house one day. She's like, oh, that's real cute, honey. So, I don't know. It's weird. It's just like I had all the confidence in the world that no matter what, I was going to do that. And then there was a few other things that I felt very intensely in me. But one of those other things was, and I think this was really jogged by, again, being around 4 years old and looking at a cul-de-sac for the first time, or really taking in what a cul-de-sac is. And I don't know if you guys had this similar feeling, but I've talked to other people, but I think even as a child, you look at a cul-de-sac and you go, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Georgie loves
this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
cul-de-sacs.
And but here's the thing, but check it out. But I think it's because deep down in us, evolutionarily, right? We're hunter-gatherers. Like we've only become this version of who we are with all this technology and all this stuff in the last few hundred years. Prior to that, we were blue-collar individuals who literally still hunted and farmed, and we did all of the we were more in touch with nature, with each other, with community. We didn't have these metropolitan spanses that are New York and LA and all this stuff. Like we were more local. When you look at a cul-de-sac, it is a tribe. It is like literally a circle of homes. And there's protection in that. There's deep value in that. And I think it's because we know from thousands and thousands and thousands of years of literally genealogical kind of like imprinting, right? We know it. Even as a kid, you know it when you see it. And so I knew then, I was like, oh, that's right, community. I'm supposed to build community. Again, had no idea what community was. I just knew it in my knowing. And then over the years, I would tell people, I'm going to buy a bunch of land one day, and all my friends and family are all going to live there, and blah, 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 blah. And again, lots more head patting. That's really nice, honey. And then I started working in, the doors started opening for me in Hollywood. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Like this thing that I knew was going to happen is like starting to happen. And I got my first look behind the curtain and I saw how all the sausage was made. And I was so bummed out because it's all it's so broken. Like I assumed.
It's magic. But magic's fake.
I assumed correctly that it was a deeply inhumane industry, but I assumed incorrectly that the inhumanity was somehow the price that we all paid for excellence. Like, you got to go through the crap because then you get to make these great movies and stuff. But then I very quickly found out that by they, I mean the majority of the, let's say, leadership of this industry, like most industries, don't actually care about the quality of the product.
This is a business.
They care about how do we make as much money as we can, squeezing the makers, the actual artists and everybody. How do we squeeze them for every penny while simultaneously like not spending money on the quality of the thing so we can make better margins, so our shareholders are happier and our CEOs make better. Like it's so garbage. It's so messed up.
It's showing now in platforms because now there's so many platforms, so many streaming services. So now that's really showing.
Dude, this is crazy.
It's crumbling. But anyway, so I didn't get into acting for those reasons, but they're not reasons why I act. These are hugely important reasons why I think to be an actor, you get the opportunity to tell people, be a part of stories that get to either bring levity into their life and or shine lights on very important things.
Amen.
Yeah.
I was washing my hands over there, and I kid you not, I turned to her and I go, this interview, I don't feel like I'm just going to interview somebody. I feel like I'm going to make like a really good friend. Like there was something about you when I was watching. I was like, dude, God is using this man at such a high velocity. You love cul-de-sacs. That was one of my biggest sailors. Three's Company, literally Three's Company. And then
the ranch with
the ranch. And before you even say it, can I ask you something? Are you going to be building a work thing for are you going to build like a studio or like a or something business wise that you're going to take reign and you're going to get rid of the thoughts of just squeezing out the artist? And
yes.
Are you?
So when I had that revelation, when my career was just starting, and I saw how broken it all was, I was so bummed out. And I was talking to God, and I was like, I don't know what to do here because I don't want to do this. I don't, even if you really don't like a thing, if you choose to engage in it, you're complicit in it. You're basically saying, I think it's messed up, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's like, okay.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I felt. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to give my life force and all my creative energy and ideas to a system that's just going to, scramble them all up and take advantage of it all. And I really genuinely believe God told me in that moment, not audibly, but I mean in the way that God...
The same way that you learned as a baby.
Yeah, kind
you just
of,
knew.
But you can hear it in your soul. And God was like, Zach, you're not wrong. It's very broken. But I, God, am going to fix it. I'm going to make a better version of this, and I'm going to use you to go and do that. Me amongst many other people, I'm assuming. But here's what you got to do, Zach. You got to go sail on this broken boat with everyone on this boat, knowing full well it's going to sink. It's probably in the process of sinking right now. And while you got to ride this boat so you can build up your resources and reputation and all of these various things. So and simultaneously during all of that time, I will be giving you downloads of the blueprint of what the new boat is supposed to look like, and then you'll kind of be building that boat while you're riding this boat. And then at the right moment, you're going to jump ship, and you're going to take as many people with you, 2 by 2, if you need to, and go create a better version of what this unfortunately kind of has always been, which is a broken version of itself. Which is why Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks and all of like these silent era OGs, they started United Artists. United Artists is not just some shingle that makes movies to this day. That's, I think, owned by MGM at this point, but they were the original like rebel alliance to the empire. Like they realized that they were the ones generating all the value for all these movies. And by the way, they were literally like Charlie Chaplin wrote, directed, produced, and starred in his own movies. He wasn't just an actor. He was all of the things. And then he would take these movies and he would give them to whoever he had a contract at the time, MGM, I don't even know who it was. And then they would go and distribute it in their theaters, and they would make the lion's share of the money, while simultaneously, by the way, trying to get into his creative process and tell him how to do this and do that, which is infuriating as a creative. And so they all banded together back in the day and were like, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do our own thing. The problem was that the way it used to be, it was all super vertically integrated, which ironically it came full circle on. But it used to be that the studios would exhibit their movies in the theaters that they owned. There was no AMC, there was no ArcLight, there was not Lowe's, there was none of that. It was MGM had MGM theaters and Universal had Universal theaters, and they would be around the country or whatever. And so if you had a title, those would go directly into those theaters. And United Artists didn't have a bunch of theaters to go and put their movies into, so were still beholden on the old studios in order to get their movies out. So it ultimately didn't work, but it's been broken. It's been broken for a really long time, and it's breaking even more now than ever. But we've needed to fix this for a long time. So 25 years ago, I was looking at all of these things and I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. And I think that in order to do that, it's not just a matter of building a place. To answer your question, this is what I'm doing. Not just building a place that's like a new independent studio for creators of all ilk, like movie, television, video games, music, podcasts, apps, anything that, is kind of a creative effort of the arts and sciences of entertainment, like a full-on content creation campus. But on that campus, why not build the places for everybody to live? Why not build schools for your kids and clinics for your healthcare? And by the way, not ones that are controlled by corrupted FDA and all of that stuff, but like provide truly life-saving, life-healing modalities, so that we can actually truly be our healthiest and happiest selves, and encouraging people in all kinds of great philosophical ways, doing away with the middle management that is unfortunately, kind of controls and I think screws up most of what all of this industry is. And also, not for nothing, but, trying to take a lot of agenda out of content. Like I think, I know everyone kind of sits in different political spaces, but I do think that, there's been a lot of, I don't know, some people will call it kind of woke agenda or whatever, which is like, let's infuse a whole bunch of stuff into these stories that doesn't need to be there. We're shoehorning it in. And by the way, I believe the same thing about like, trying to shoehorn Jesus into a story. It's like, you shouldn't do that either.
He doesn't even ask you to do that.
Yeah.
He says, there's a line that I always tell people, like, if you want to preach Jesus, do it by your actions, not by your mouth.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And you know what? Vivek Ramaswamy and Robert Kennedy, Elon Musk,
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, all these people, their main message was, hey, like, it's okay to have a free speech. It's okay to have, but let's stop pushing and making it mandatory.
Yeah.
And also you were saying, it took me a bit, and then I had this revelation that I wanted to do this. There was a reason why Jesus came up to Peter and says, come, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And he picked the broken. Because one, you can see the glory. Because when we look at you, we're like, man, look what God's doing through this guy, which makes us see Jesus through you. And the second is, you can't have this idea and want to do this unless it's truly hurt you. And you've seen it with your own eyes and you see the impact that it's done to people around you. So you had to be broken for you to be rebuilt through what you're doing now. So first of all, sorry you had to go through that. But on the other hand, I'm not sorry you went through that because I'm very excited that you're going through it.
God redeems all of it. God redeems all of it. You know, we should not pray for an easy ride. We shouldn't.
You know, they say, be careful what you pray for. And I just told Belle, I changed that. And I said, prepare for what you pray for. Why be careful? I mean, like, if I ask God for something and he says, okay, well, I have to break you down, but this is good for you, then amen. I just pray that it doesn't hurt me or I move on from it. Yeah. It's kind of like childbirth when a woman is going through pain through the birth labor, but like, after, she doesn't even remember any of that because she's holding her newborn baby.
Well, also her body is flooded with so many great endorphins and oxytocin and all that stuff. Hopefully, I mean, you know, that's kind of what the natural process is. But
with every like broken thing that happens in your life, that lesson is so much greater than what you went through, and that's the only way that you're able to grow. And I have to say, it's so incredible to hear you say like your vision for things and how you feel about the industry, because like it's literally the place that we are in. And as somebody, you know, like, I'm an actor and it's something that I've loved my whole entire life. And, you know, I've built my way up, but then now I've become to a place, certainly like as my relationship has gotten closer with Jesus, and I'm like, like there's a lot of things I don't want to do. There's a lot of things that I won't do and I don't want to represent. And so I had to take like a hard pause and be like, okay, like I have to make a hard decision. And right now with everything that's made and the way that female actresses are portrayed and, you know, it's so sexual and all these things, it's like, it kind of feels impossible. You know, I'm like, oh, well, you know, probably not going to be able to do it because this is all that they want. And then, you know, but when you can do anything through God. And so I was able to meditate on it and be like, no, actually, I could change that. You know, I could, you know what I mean? I could set those boundaries and it might be more difficult, but there's no reason why you can't find projects where you don't have to be sexualized in that way or present a certain message. And that's why I'm so grateful towards like people like Angels. And now hearing you say that, I mean, that's the greatest gift. And so if you had to adapt any biblical story into a film, what would it be?
Well, and we were kind of talking about this before. I mean, I think the story of David is just so great, you know, and it's an epic. I mean, it's, you know, it's a whole life of him being, you know, the youngest, essentially, I think, or second to youngest of, and, you know, out in the fields being a shepherd and then called upon, like all of his older brothers, it seemingly they would be the ones that be like, I'd be the king. And he's like, no, that one.
He wasn't even presented.
No, it wasn't even presented.
Yeah.
And, you know, but then, you know, part of the reason why I think it's such a powerful story and one that I think a lot of religious, you know, Christian audiences should watch, if done correctly, is because it's not clean. It's not, you know, this like, it's not all that. I mean, he was a murderer and an adulterer and many other things, you know, and yet still a man after God's own heart. And I think that that's important, because if all we do is tell all of the nice stuff, then you don't really understand what they came from. Like you're saying, you know, like everybody came from this place. All of those apostles came from being these more broken, you know, vessels, and then transmuted into something that was far more powerful, in part because God's like, yeah, let me show you what I can do with them. I could show you what I could do with the most pious, zealous, strongest, whatever, but it won't be nearly as impressive to anyone watching, because they'll be like, yeah, but they were already really pious and zealous and strong and impressive. So I think David is, but I will say though, my friends at the Wonder Project, which is John Irwin, who he started Kingdom Story with his brother Andy Irwin, that I did the movie American Underdog, the Kurt Warner football story with, and also Unbreakable Boy that's coming out in February. They've done lots of different films and whatnot, but John of Kingdom Story, he went and started a new shingle over with Amazon called The Wonder Project, and they are making the David series right now. They're about to
I
go
know.
shoot the
I got
second
so
season.
jealous. I got so jealous. My dream is to always play David.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like it's the story that every man should read, so he could remember that like all you need is God's favor.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Like I always tell everybody, like, the reason why he was righteous and the man next to him wasn't because he didn't sin. It's because he accepted his sin. He knew he was sinning and he wanted to be better with God. And I think when you're at a state of like, no, I got it figured it out, I'm not going to learn anymore, then you're dying.
Yeah.
But if you're chasing after God's heart, I think the more you know God, the more you realize how bad you are and how like lost you are and how broken you are. And it's daunting. So some people run away from it. But on the other side of it is such glory for him. And then your whole life prospers over it. Is there a time in your life where you felt like you were David, where you were like, it's not for me? And then you're up on a light and you're like, okay, I got to represent God and I got to figure out what he wants me to do in this.
I mean, every day, you know? Like, I mean, not every day, but I feel, I don't know, it's weird. I like, you know, there's times when I feel like my life is representing David's story. Sometimes I feel like it's representing Moses. Sometimes I feel like it's representing Noah. Sometimes I feel like, you know, like right now, the studio that I'm trying to build feels very much like the ark that God was telling Noah, like, you got to go build this thing because the flood is coming. You know, I don't think the flood is water. You know, honestly, I think the flood is like AI. We can talk all day long and wax philosophical about like, how do we save the industry from itself in the way that it treats people or doesn't make great content or whatever. Guys, honestly, like T-minus 2 years from now, good luck finding any job. Because the studios will have a technology. It's already basically here. But imagine, if you will, you know, not only will every studio possess this technology, but then they'll go to you and say, you know, hey, as a part of your HBO Max subscription, you can pay, you know, $10 extra and you get to use the creator sandbox. And in there, you can make your own movies. And all you have to do is, and you can type in, I want anything that's a Warner Brothers asset. So it could be Shazam and Batman, and it could be Neo from the Matrix, or anything that's under that one. And you can type in all these characters, and you want them to go on a treasure hunt on Mars, and I wanted to feel like a Steven Spielberg movie, go.
Dang.
And then it will make that movie, and it will look indiscernible from human made. It will, in fact, it'll look amazing, and it'll be entirely animated, but it'll look like real life. Like, this is where we're about to be.
So what makes you still want to pursue what you're going up a flood?
Well, because I think that there should always be, hopefully will always be, a niche, at least a niche part of the entertainment industry where people are like, I actually still want to go support humans making art, like human-made art, no matter how good AI-derived art becomes, and it will become very, 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 very good, and it'll be cheap. That's where I think most people don't. Most people think, well, yeah, but I'm never going to want, like, you know, a computer generated movie. You're like, yeah, if we're being super altruistic, sure, obviously. But if a human made movie still costs you $20, but for $2, you can make a movie where you, by the way, get to scan your own face and your own voice, and you get to be Superman. Or better yet, your kid gets to be Superman, and now you can shut them up for the next couple hours for $2, and they get to watch themselves be Superman in a movie. You are absolutely going to pay for that money. Also, we're going to be, as actors, we're going to be competing with long dead actors. They're already going to all the estates of all of the dead actors.
Yeah, they're bringing them back to life.
Hey, Gene Kelly's great-great-great-grandson, who, by the way, is not Gene Kelly by a long stretch, might be a lovely person, I don't know, but like isn't nearly famous or rich like his great-great-great-grandfather. And they're going to go, hey, we'll pay you $2 million to use your great-great-great-grandfather's likeness for the next 10 years. And they'll be like, sign me up. And they're going to get $2 million. And then all of a sudden, we're all going to get to watch Gene Kelly movies again. Like, how insane. And again, I don't want to support that, but are you kidding me? If all of a sudden there's a Gene Kelly, like a new Singing in the Rain sequel, I'm like, oh, take my money. I want to watch it. I would want to watch that.
Three's Company in the modern times.
I mean, come on, you know. So anyway, so there's a lot of things that are happening even within our own industry, and why, like, for example, that feels very Noah for me. And yet sometimes it is that you know, where I know my heart. I know that I've always had a relationship with God, and I've always like tried to remain humble and grateful and trusting of my Creator. That is what I believe we are all like. Start there, like really, like I pray for humility, gratitude, and trust. Like, Amen. Help me to walk in that, God. And I think that to the extent that I know that I don't walk a perfect life all the time, that I'm still a man after God's own heart, even though I stumble all the time. There's plenty of David, you know. I think anybody can kind of find that. But also, there's something in David that, you know, there was also that warrior and him, like, you know, fighting against forces that would want to destroy that which is light and that which is God breathed. And so I think there's also a responsibility to that. And there is darkness in this existence. There are principalities and powers and things that we need to not just be aware of, but also, you know,
go up against,
actively go up against.
Amen. You know? I agree. There's always a Goliath.
Yeah.
So fascinating, man. It's really cool watching you speak because it gives me more confidence. I think sometimes when you're alone, and you probably felt like this when you were doing Chuck, but sometimes you get exhausted getting back up. Even though God gives you the strength to get back up, sometimes you're like, fuck, dude, let me just stay down for a bit. Like, I'd rather just lay in bed right now. And so when I see how excited you are and how sharp he's made you, it's like, I think this is why he says, behave like me so they could see me and it could encourage them to be like me. So thank you for that. I want to jump into natural talents, because if we're talking about AI, that's cool. That's a computer thing. But like, dude, you could actually like legitimately sing. That is like, bro, you have an amazing voice. Did the acting come first or the singing? Were you like, let me play that part? By the way, I could pretend like I could sing until I actually could sing. What came first?
I mean, they were both kind of simultaneously, to be honest. Although, no, actually, well, yeah. I mean,
you never trained?
No, recently in the last...
You never trained?
No, in the last couple of years, I started working with a vocal coach.
These past couple years you started?
Yeah.
Dog, you are talented.
Thanks, man. I mean, listen, again, that's all God. That's all a testament to God.
Yeah, but you're a freak of nature for being able to put it to work.
Of innate understanding and talent to begin with, but also gave me understanding and curiosity to want to keep working on it, even just in my own understanding. And so that's been a lifelong thing. And when I was a little kid, I was always entertaining people. Like, I was a total ham, had no off switch. I mean, honestly, that was, I would drive people out of their minds. I mean, truth be told, like, I was really good at making friends, and then I could lose them quickly because they were like, would this guy just shut up? Like, just chill, just be chill with us. And I'm like, let me need Jim Carrey some more for you. I like you. I mean, it's like, what are you doing? Because there was deep insecurity in me, you know, that I didn't realize until much later in life, that I didn't love myself. I mean, this is what some life-saving therapy literally at 37 taught me for the first time. But when it came to the talents and stuff that I have been able to access throughout my life, I mean, you know, me and my sisters and my cousin Nikki and her mom Sally would driving down the road and singing, you know, oldies like Hey Earth 101. Like, you know, like I was always singing. I always loved singing. My dad was a singer as well, although we didn't grow up with him. But I do think that there's genetics in all of that stuff too. Whether it's your control of your vocal cords, the strength of them, your own just inner ear, like how well can you hear pitch and all that kind of stuff. So I've always been doing it. And then when I started doing theater in like middle school or whatever, you know, started doing musicals. And so I was singing in all of those and, you know, trial and error and like, okay, I'm giving it all I got. And then I'd be like, I would have no voice by the end of like 3 performances. And I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. And so, you know, unfortunately had wonderful music directors along the way in different productions that would help me to understand other things. But it wasn't until really just a few years ago where I was singing the national anthem at a Dodger game, and my friend Jessie Collins, who's literally one of the most insane vocalists that I know, she's Kelly Clarkson's like #1 like backup singer, does all of her arrangements for her show and all that stuff. Anyway, she works with this incredible vocal coach named Dave Stroud. And so because I was singing the national anthem, and it's a hard song to sing, and it was at like a LA, like a NLDS, like a, you know, a divisional series like game.
Yeah, you can't mess that up.
No. And so I went to Dave and I was like, can I just run this with you? And, you know, he's like, yeah, totally. And so we, you know, little nudgings here and there, but, you know, it was pretty straightforward. Did that. Actually, you know what? maybe the first time I went to him was when I sang in the Academy Awards. So Mandy Moore and we did Tangled, which was such, again, as a Disney nerd my whole life, like I got to be in a Disney animated musical and one of the best, and playing one of the best princes ever. I'm humble bragging, but
No. It just
legitimately-
got recently voted as #1.
Probably.
No, it did.
Flynn is incredible.
And they're building a park at Disneyland.
In Disney Tokyo something or other, there's a ride there, but I don't think they're building a Tangled
I thought that they're building a whole theme park.
of Tangled.
Yes, this is what I saw. That
would be so cool.
There was like a Disney
I'm gonna
update.
have
I
to-
could be.
I'm gonna have to Google
I
that.
love how I would know it before you would know it.
Like maybe. Did you do like voice stuff for the Tokyo Park?
No, they just used the existing song.
The AI thing. You're like, son of a
But
gun.
there's, yeah, totally. Oh my god, for real though. But it's really interesting because they have a Japanese singers singing it, so it goes between the English version and the Japanese version. So I really want to go see it and hear my Japanese counterparts.
Yeah,
singing
you have
these
to
songs.
go.
How did you even get involved with that project? That's such a by the way, that's a huge project.
Dude, it was completely God. So, as are, most of the incredible things, if not all of them, right? God's involved in everything, every little thing too. So, but ultimately how that all played out, my voiceover agent, knew that this was casting. Flynn originally was written as having an English accent, and they were only seeing English actors. And my voiceover agent knew me well enough to know that I do a decent English accent.
Could you give us a test?
Sure. What do you want to hear, darling?
Yeah, okay.
Like something like this. I mean, you could go more, proper English, like something up in this area. We could do like Cockney, like this type of thing. Or
Russell
whatever.
Brand.
I was gonna say.
Russell Brand. Hello. But anyway, and there's lots of variations in between, right? Depending on where in England you're from. It's actually fascinating. I love all the accents there. But
And you trained yourself on these too?
all those are trained by myself. Yeah, never took any classes for that.
This is
But again,
bullshit, dude.
Well, listen.
You know how much money I wasted
Listen.
to be no good?
Some
They should have just told me I can't do it.
Some kids will, and I wish I would have done this, picked up a guitar and they screw around with a guitar every day for hours and hours. I, as this hammy kid that was always wanting to entertain people, would just, all the cartoons and all the movies and all the TV shows I would watch, I would try to emulate all of those voices.
Hey,
And I started
dude,
to-
so did we, but we're not good.
Well, you're
All right, listen, I don't know what to tell you.
He's making it seem like that's how it happened.
No, but your innate ability to really feel, since you're in a young age, you're watching these movies, you're feeling them so much, you're sobbing. That plays such a big part in you being an actor because you can understand the character and you could truly feel it, so it comes through.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a level of empathy that was a part of all of that. And as an actor, it really is all empathy. It's like, okay, you're pretending to be another person. You're walking a mile in their shoes, literally. But at any rate, when it came to Tangled, my agent was like, they were having a hard time casting their Flynn with the English actors that they were looking at. And my agent said, hey, you should see Zach. He does an English accent. They're like, we don't know. She's like, just give him a shot. And so I went in and I did the scenes as Flynn, but with an English accent. And I was doing all this. And then they told us to prepare like a singer-songwriter song. And I did Sweet Baby James by James Taylor.
Nice.
And then I left and they said, quite liked his read and what he did. So can he come back and sing do the read one more time and also come back and prepare this song, At Last I See the Light, the song that we do, the duet in the movie. And came back and did that. And then they hired me. And then we started to get into making the movie. And then in that process, they said, it was really funny actually, they came back to my agent and they were like, so listen, we think, because no Disney movie, if you go back and look at any Disney movie, the prince and princess both have like an American accent. All the characters around them can all have English accents and whatever it is. In Aladdin, I guess, the genie kind of had an American, Robin Williams had a billion accents in that, but like Jafar and the Sultan and all these other, they all have different accents.
But the Arab guy's like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
You don't sound like my cousins.
I've never realized that.
Yeah. So anyway, so then
sorry.
they came back to us and they said, so we think we're going to change his voice to more of like a mid-Atlantic, American accent. Do you think he can do that? My agent was like, yeah, I think he can. That's what he does. He was doing this other thing. So anyway, so that's ultimately how I got the job. It was all because my voiceover agent believed in me and because they gave me a chance as a non-English speaking, non-English accented actor.
When you were reading the script, did you think it was going to be such a grand slam?
I mean, listen, man, I loved that project from day one to now. I've always believed in it. I think that it was weird. It was like, Disney was actually kind of on a bit of a downslope because The Princess and the Frog was the last princess movie before it, and it did not perform. And John Lasseter had come in from all of success at Pixar, and he was like, you know what? We're going to stop making princess movies. And honestly, they would have probably canceled Tangled had they not already spent so much money in development up to that point. Wow. So that's the only reason why we got to make the movie. And then we made a really good movie.
Yeah.
And people really liked it. And we did pretty well. And then on the heels of that, they were like, okay, maybe we won't close down this princess thing. And then they did Frozen. And then that blew up even bigger, and so, but I do think.
So technically you're the one to thank for Frozen.
No, I mean, yeah, but no. It's all part of a lineage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen, Idina Menzel and Kristen Bell and Josh Gad and Jonathan Groff and all of those incredible voice actors, incredible animators, directors, the songs. I mean, the reason I think that Frozen really, boosted bigger than a lot of other movies, including Tangled, was because of Let It Go. All of a sudden, they had a song that wasn't just a song that you'd hear in the movie.
Yeah, it was a smash.
But it was like playing on pop stations, and all the kids wanted to hear it. And it was a super good, catchy song. So that was a huge, propellant, I think, in how Frozen ultimately, succeeded in the way that they did. And ultimately that led to, then the Moanas of the world and Lin-Manuel Miranda making all of those great songs. And although apparently he didn't in the second one, I don't know.
Well, now question, is there a Tangled 2?
So that was one of the bummers. We never actually got to do a Tangled 2, which I really wish we could have done. They did Tangled, and they did a little short called Tangled Ever After. And then we actually did 3 seasons of a Tangled television series that was on Disney Channel. So instead of a sequel movie, we got to do that series, which was also a really wonderful experience. And Mandy and I, most all of the original cast came back. And we had incredible directors and writers. Chris Sonnenberg, who was our showrunner, is like just a dear brother to this day. So that was a special experience. But it would have been nice to do like
do you think the door's closed, or do you think in the future they might circle back?
I honestly have no idea. I know that they've been talking about doing a live action because with Disney, I mean, with every animated movie they're making a live action of. Which then probably a few years from now, then they'll make another animated version of the live action of it. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, they're really good. Not really good at it, but like they like to always take their idea and build on it. They're not really quick to like create a whole new like direction.
A whole new world. No,
So
no,
good.
that's not true.
Even as a joke, that was good.
They build lots of new IP all the time.
I get it. You still want to work with Disney?
No. Listen, no. I'm super grateful for all the time I got to work with those guys and all the ways that it blessed my family, getting to go more to Disneyland and all the cool perks and stuff. Like that was wonderful. Listen, Disney has their own things that they're trying to work out right now, and as they should. I think a lot of, again, going back to, what we were talking about before when it comes to certain ideologies and wokeness or whatever, all that stuff, I know that people, I've gotten into not argument, but people on Twitter are like, that's not what woke means. I'm like, listen, I'm not talking about the technical definition of what woke originated as, which was specifically about Black culture and ways in which that there was, inequalities within, all of that. I understand that. Woke as a term has become to encompass anything and everything that feels very left-leaning in agenda and ideology and whatever that is. And I think that a lot of companies, Disney included, in an attempt to be inclusive or whatever that is, have gone very far down that road. And I don't know that it has ultimately benefited them as a company or benefited the content. I think that we can be inclusive and we should be inclusive, but you can do it in really natural, subtle, everyday ways that don't feel like, again, it's like, you gotta believe this.
I think both sides are just super aggressive. Like this side, they're trying to maybe push an agenda or maybe be inclusive. And this side's like, I don't want to see any of that. Me and her still go to Disney. We get a hotel room. We stay there. We have fun. We're good at separating what we love and what we don't love. Listen, human beings walk around us all the time that are messy. I'm not going to hate this person altogether because they have one messy side to them.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to hate a whole corporation when it has so many employees and so many great minds.
Absolutely.
And it's not, I don't drive with that. I believe that if Jesus gave you free will to decide what you want to do and what you want to push as an artist, then go do it. If he's going to tell you to keep going, why am I going to tell you to shut up?
Yeah.
But I just dislike when people are like, no, all of that has to go. It has to burn down and blah, blah, blah. I love Disney. I literally fly my mom out from Arizona. We stay like 2 nights there. We go on rides. We hang out.
You guys go to the Disneyland Resort? You go to the Grand California? Where do you guys?
It's I don't know.
Yeah,
when you
it's
go
the
down,
Grand California.
it's the
The
Grand
Grand
California.
California.
It's so nice.
Yeah, that's great.
The day that we went, there was no AC though. That
that's not nice.
Hot
was
dinner.
tough.
That's
dude.
not nice.
That was tough.
Well, I mean, but weren't you in the park most of that day? Like, what are you doing?
No. So we're a little older now. So like, the whole walking around for quite some time is a little much. I like to. Okay, this is what I found out this time around. Their food is unreal. There's
Napa Rose.
Napa Rose.
Oh, yeah,
There's some
Napa Rose is
restaurants.
great.
The Blue
Yeah.
Lagoon. My friend taught me how to do Disneyland. There's like you have to look into this. There's like a lot to go on. We went on we bought lightsabers. We built them.
Yeah.
But we also got to go there on May 4th. So they open up the park at nighttime. So everybody's there's walking around with their lightsabers. And dude, I can't tell you how much fun I had there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
That's great.
Are you planning on working with Disney on any of your projects? Would you ever partner with them and be like, hey, like I want to bring this to life?
Listen, I've gone and pitched over the years. I mean, I've pitched various projects to them, or auditioned for various things for Disney. But no, I mean, the stuff that I want to make, I don't know that it fits into that mold particularly. Everybody's got a brand.
What's your
everybody's
dream
trying
project?
What's that?
What's your dream project? Like right now, I don't know if this is true, but I saw this and I pray to God it's true. I saw that Elon gave Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg a good amount of money to start a production so they could create things that they think is good and family friendly. But so say Elon came into the room and he goes, dude, your stuff is out of this world and I like that. So here's all my money. You could create whatever you want. What would be something that you're like, oh, dude, I'm going with this?
Well, bro, you are literally speaking my dreams into existence, because that's exactly what I've been hoping for, and not just recently, but I'll get back to that. First of all, when it comes to, I know exactly what you're talking about. There was this thing that's been floating around the internet that says Elon Musk has invested $1 billion into Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson's studio in Las Vegas, or at least into the content that they will make. I've heard that was just created, it was like kind of like a fake news site or whatever that created it. I know, but listen,
maybe it happens.
But maybe it happens anyway.
He has that much money, dude. He can do it.
That kind of guy.
Do it,
it wouldn't surprise me. And Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson are very legitimate, human beings and stars, and understand, and directors and producers. Like, they understand how to do this stuff. I would love to meet with those guys, because I think that creating a whole network of different studios that are all kind of collaborating together to make excellent content, and giving an alternative to the existing system would be epic. I don't really have an agenda to make anything, like I don't really have an agenda to make, like, let's say, family friendly content, although I do want to make some content that is family friendly. I also want to make content that's adult content. I want to make like some cool, crazy sci-fi, movie or series that might be, PG-13 or even R or something like that. I don't know. Like, I don't think that in order to like create the alternative to Hollywood, that doesn't mean that you only make G or PG movies for families.
No,
They
of
do
course
plenty
not.
of that.
You got to
They do
tell
it
the
very
real
well.
story.
You got to tell great stories.
Yeah.
And so listen, I have so many different ideas for shows. A really dope Western series based on a graphic novel that I've been developing for a while that I think would be incredible to shoot in Texas on my ranch. There's a sci-fi show that I've been developing for a while that, again, to go into the details would be,
Also, somebody could steal it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
they make an AI version of it. You're like, damn it.
100%, right? And then there's also a show that I've been wanting to make for a long time which is just like a really sober, like I think that with most, like I'm a sucker for a post-apocalyptic type of movie or show. Like, I don't know, like there's something that's very alluring about like what happens if a meteor hits the world or an alien invasion or, whatever. And, but I think that there has never really been a show that's tackled, well, what if like the economy just collapsed? Like nobody's ever, like to me, then that's like one of the realest ways that this all could fall apart.
Yeah.
Is if the money stops flowing because some major things happen in the world and there's insane layoffs. I mean, I think AI is going to be a part of this, like I really like, I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but I cannot stress this enough. Please, to everybody who's watching or listening or whatever you're doing, wake up to AI. Please wake up to it. It is not just some like, oh, that's fun, or that's like some passing fad or whatever.
It's going to replace a lot of people's jobs.
It is going to replace so many jobs, and it's going to happen way faster than you think it's going to happen.
How many times do I tell that to you?
Yeah, no, we talk
How
about
many
it all the
times I
time.
walk into a restaurant, they're like, yeah, use the iPad. And I go, dude, this is going to replace you.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom walks into a bank, all of them are just standing there, not doing anything, but
Yep.
they're like, yo, go to that thing.
Yeah,
It'll
go
take
use
care
the
of you. I'm
kiosk.
like, bro,
Yeah.
my mom would tell them, she goes, no, I want to use you because I want to give you guys work. Like, if we keep going there, they're going to replace you. You guys are not going to have a job.
Yeah.
It's a very scary thing, but it's a real thing. What do you think we could do to counteract that? If it's how, like, wake up, but what do we do?
Well, listen, I mean, in the larger grand scheme of everything, as far as like technology and progress, like I'm a firm believer that you can't stop it. You can only hope to guide it, right? So we're not going to stop this flood.
Yeah.
We can only build levees and dams and channels and things to try and make sure that we're guiding it in the best possible way. There's still going to be casualties. There's still going to be a lot of people that are going to get hurt in the process, I think, unfortunately. But I think at the end of the day, we are moving into what is going to be a whole new world, like legitimately. And I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of jobs that, by the way, we never really wanted to do anyway. A lot of like menial nonsense jobs, whatever, like replace those. Fine.
Yeah, but that's
right?
a bedrock.
No, bro, trust me. Listen, drivers, like drivers, how many people are hired as drivers right now? Cabs and Ubers and trucks and all of that's going to be automated.
In like 3 years.
Yeah.
Gone. And by the way, no disrespect, but would you trust somebody who's driving, which I've been an Uber driver, so I'm like, dude, pull over right now.
Yeah.
Or would you trust the computer that has 1 billion sensors around it? So
I
it's
don't
like
know.
hard to argue against.
You are now, but I mean, like I've got a Tesla and I let it self-drive sometimes and it blows my mind.
dare you?
It blows my mind. Like it's incredible. But by the way, I still actually like to drive, so I don't use it all that often, you know? But like if you're just like wanting to chill, it's a long drive or whatever, just go boop, and you're like, boop, you're done.
It's so practical, but I would be like,
yeah, I know,
stressing.
but you eventually will get used to it. That's a progress that will happen. But I think that ultimately, and this is part of the reason why I want to build, why I feel like I need to build the campus that I'm building, or campuses, plural, if I can do multiple, is because I think that really, as humans, what we want to be focusing on are just, there's 2 areas of vocation that really mean anything anymore moving into the future, and that's creation and discovery. Everything else you can automate. It doesn't matter. People can, robots and things can do templates and make widgets and do these things. But when it comes to creating new things, AI will also be able to do that, but we don't want it to take over all of that. And also when it comes to discovering new things, we'll use AI as helpful tools in our tool belt, but we want to discover new planets, new bacterias, new medicines, new this, new that, new, whatever all that is. That is something that stimulates the human mind, heart, and soul. And I think that so long as we hold on to, we really hold on to lots of places for people to work, because work is not just a matter of making income. Work is purpose. How many people retire and they die just a few years after they retire? And why?
Because they
they
stopped
have
learning.
nothing to do.
Yeah.
They literally are just sitting. They were already sedentary a lot, and now they're super sedentary, and now they don't have any purpose, and they die. And that's why the people who are like centenarians in blue zones that live the longest, people in Okinawa, Japan,
They're always working.
they're working.
Yeah.
And by
With
the
a
way,
cigarette in their mouth.
Yeah, and they're making these cool little guitar things, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. That keeps you alive. That keeps you going. That keeps you happy. So I think it's important. We must have purpose, as we move into this new world. But I don't know. Listen, I don't know what it's going to be like for everybody else in every other industry. I don't know for sure what's going to happen in entertainment. I can guess, and my guess is, in very short order, people, not just the studios, but everyday human beings, through the various catalogs of the studios, will have access, by the way, not just to make their own movies, but TV shows and video games. Like already right now, by the way, Electronic Arts, EA, they've got a maker sandbox that allows a gamer to go into this program and be like, I want a first-person shooter where all of the walls are made of balloons that I can pop, but also the guns are this, that, like give all these descriptive things and press enter, and it makes you your own personal Halo or
Have you
whatever.
tried it? Because you love gaming, right?
Yeah, you love gaming.
I love gaming. No, I haven't tried it yet.
What about the VR world and like how you could, like, for example, I think in the future, Grand Theft Auto is going to get to a place where you could just literally go into the game,
That's fun.
have money. That's fun. But like, does that scare you or does that excite you? Like how my wife just got excited.
So I personally would like to, again, like can't stop progress, but we can try to guide it, right? I want to keep us from going full Matrix, jacked in, VR headset and out. Like, I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is create experiences where people use more augmented reality. So you could still use one of those headsets, but you would see the real world. Like, Pokemon Go right now. Pokemon Go is an AR game. You walk around, you're looking through your lens at the real world, and then all of a sudden they paint in a Pokemon there. Gotta catch them out. And I have so many friends that are literally addicted to that game.
Are you
grown
addicted to
ass
that
adults?
game?
I don't play it. I don't know. I played it when it first came out, and I was like, I can't anymore. I can't do this. I can't do it. I gotta train them. I gotta spend my free time training them so that then we can. I can't.
Have you ever played RuneScape?
No.
Oh, I just thought maybe you'd be like a RuneScape guy. I'm sorry for throwing that question out.
How dare you? But so anyway, I think augmented reality and doing cool gamings with that I'm about, because then you're still connected to the real world. You're still moving your body in the real world, but then we can kind of paint in lots of other cool things that you can interact with and have fun with. That's
the only thing I'm excited about. I'm not excited about, like, God forbid, people losing their jobs, but I'm also like, I love Fortnite. I'm very like one game type of guy because I have
Big
things.
Fortnite guy, huh?
Yeah. Well, right now I like to drop in with my boys, and.
I like to drop in, do a little battle royale.
I'm watching The Sopranos, and I've realized that a little bit, once in a while, an Italian version of me comes out. I don't know. You watch The Sopranos?
I never watched it.
You've never watched the greatest show to ever exist?
I haven't watched it either.
Nope.
What? You're Italian.
I know, but
This is blasphemy. Anyway, sorry, we'll move on. I actually had a question for you. So you're very, very strong on standing up for what you believe in and also progressing your mind and your heart and your spirit, your talents. And you're not scared of showing the world, like, hey, I don't know, you guys might not agree with this, but I'm going to go this direction. Mm-hmm. How hard was it for you, and why did you start speaking up towards the election? I know a lot of people that are in your field are kind of like, nah, I'm not jumping into that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, in part, I guess that's part of the reason why I felt the need to, because I knew a lot of people in my industry and in my position wouldn't, and listen, I try not to judge anybody for any of the decisions they make, because I'm not walking in their shoes. I'm not living their life. I don't know what's going on in their heart and their mind. And God calls us all separately and differently into various moments in our lives. And for me, I am far less concerned now because Trump won, and not specifically because Trump won, but because I think we all, as citizens, won in a battle between not Republican and Democrat, between really like corrupted establishment government and a new unity party of Republicans and Democrats and libertarians, like you were saying, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, these are lifelong Democrats.
Dude, we're living in a crazy time. Like, the fact that Elon Musk came out of nowhere to back Vivek Ramaswamy. When I had a conversation with him, I looked at her, I go, this guy's a genius.
Yeah, Vivek,
These guys are
smart.
like picked out by God to go like the Avengers and like assemble. And I loved when you were in that interview, you're like, listen, I'm not necessarily voting for Trump. I'm voting for the team that's supporting him. Yeah. And did you, well, one, were you scared before you did that? And then two, did you lose any friends or relationships in this industry?
So, I mean, listen, I definitely had, I think what I would call a healthy trepidation, you know, like listen, in 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson, I think was the Libertarian candidate then. I did not like either candidates. In 2020, I voted for Marianne Williamson, or I think she was the Libertarian candidate at the time, because I didn't like either option.
I didn't even know who those two people are.
Exactly, right. But to me...
And I'm not disrespecting them, I truly didn't know.
Both of those elections, any election is important, but I didn't feel like this is fate of the free world important in those times. Yeah. And I was also very vocally like not about Trump. Like, you know, I see all the same things that people have issues with him about. Like, I get it. I'm not walking into that vote blind. But to be able to watch his actual transformation from when he was first president to then not being, to then almost, by the way, getting killed multiple times, to him humbling himself and recognizing that there are other people that would make his ticket and make this country truly great again and healthy again and prosperous again, and to reach across the aisle and to get those people attached, right? You know, all of those factors were all like, okay, so these are the options. I definitely think that Kamala was somebody who was representative of a very corrupted establishment government. And there, by the way, there are a lot of Republicans, the Mitch McConnells of the world or whatever. They are Republican representations of that. I don't want anything to do with any of them. I don't think any of us should want to have to do with any of them, because they are the types of people that want to keep us in constant wars because of a very real thing, the military-industrial complex. It is very real. If we're in constant conflict, then our government and all of our defense budget goes toward paying the Lockheed Martins and the Boeings and the Northrops and the Halliburtons, and they're all making billions of dollars while they destroy Ukraine, and then afterwards, and they get to rebuild Ukraine. Like, guys, it is a racket. Just please wake up. It's a racket. More than that, they love that all those people love that we stay sick all the time. Because if we're sick all the time, then they can constantly be selling us the solution to us being sick. There's no more profitable two industries in the world than war and sickness, right? And that's all corrupted establishment. And I want nothing to do with that. And for somebody like Bobby, because I was stumping for Bobby first, I really wanted him to be president.
That's why we had him on the show.
100%. Oh, yeah, Bobby on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and by the way, like this guy, first of all, he's ripped for his age. I don't know if you're watching these videos. Yeah. And by the way, his skits with his dogs and stuff, hilarious. Yeah. But besides that, what got me was like, one, he was like, I don't want the vax. Like, I don't like this. Yeah. And the fact that he wasn't like a puppet in my mind. When he was speaking, he was truly speaking from the heart. He's like, guys, we got to fix the soil. Yeah. Like, we stop yelling at the pharmacy. We got to get to the root of our foods and and all of this stuff. And so when I saw a man who wasn't afraid, and by the way, it's sometimes scary because like these people are
his uncle and his dad both got killed by our government. I mean, I believe.
I mean, I'm not saying anything, but I do agree. I'm not saying you're right, but you're absolutely right.
And they killed Martin Luther King, and they killed Malcolm X, and they've started coups in numerous countries around the world, and they've assassinated all kinds of people. And by the way, I think a lot of people involved in all of that, just for the record, are people that believed in the moment they thought they were doing something great for democracy, or they were doing something great for whatever it was.
The same way they did for Hitler. The same way that they did for Hitler.
Yeah, sure.
Hitler didn't just come out being evil. He was Times Magazine's greatest man of the world.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. Remember, Lucifer and any evil man, they're very wise and sneaky with their tongue. Yeah. They destroy. They create a huge problem for them to come in and be the hero of the problem. Yeah. What do you think that reminds us of? The pharmacy. Oh, you're sick and fat? Yeah. Don't keep eating the fast food. Keep not going to the gym.
Don't worry about changing your diet or actually working out.
Yeah,
just
take a pill.
Take a pill.
Yeah, that's crazy.
God's giving us everything that we need.
Yeah, the pendulum is swinging back.
A pill that, by the way, they say they've tested. Yeah. But have they? What's all that data? Like, it's so
What do you mean the commercials are like, take this. Yeah. If you have a runny nose, but you might want to kill yourself. Yeah. You're gonna have stomach problems. Like
the laundry list.
She takes the pill, suicidal, sneezes again. You're like, oh, come on,
seriously.
Yeah. But listen, and also just really quick, when it comes to Bobby. Listen, I'm very much on board with him in that I think we need massive reforms when it comes to vaccinations. But he's not actually anti-vaccination. He is pro-transparency. And we have not had transparency because our pharmaceutical companies that manufacture all these vaccines, specifically vaccines, are basically in a loophole where they never get held accountable, and they have not done the safety testing.
You can't even sue them.
No, bro,
that's
it's
crazy
insane. Since
to
the
me.
80s. I know, it's insane. So that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of, and that's what he will do, along with all of the incredible other nominations for NIH and CDC and FDA and all that. We got a clean house. It's got to be transparent. It's got to be good. It can't be just about special interest and lobbyists paying legislators to push all this stuff through. We can't have the head of the FDA, having just come from being a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, becomes the head of the FDA for a few years, and then goes back to being the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. What's the word I'm looking for? The interest, not collision of interest, what's the term?
Entanglement?
The entanglement, yeah. Anyway, incentive. Yeah, but no, it's like it's conflict of interest.
Oh yeah.
Conflict of interest. You have a conflict of interest if you are supposed to be regulating the various companies that you were previously a CEO of and the one that you're about. You're not. You're going to be doing backhanded deals and backroom deals and being like, yeah, we'll get that drug through even though you haven't properly tested it. But don't worry about it. You'll make billions of dollars before anybody catches on. And then people will sue you, and then you'll pay out a little bit of that money, but you still pocket $10 billion of a drug.
It's just people's lives.
Yeah,
I have
people's lives.
I have a theory on why I think this country is starting to come into the light again. I really do. I'm an Assyrian man, and every year my church comes together and says, hey, remember when Jonah saved us? Jonah came and he saved the Assyrians, even though we weren't worthy, and we repented. We were all wrong, but then we looked up at God and said, God, we kicked you out of this country, but now we want you back. And I think this is what happened in America. We kicked God out of this country, and then the people that were not with God ran the country. And then now we called back for our Lord and Savior to come back. And the first thing we have is wisdom. We are no longer just walking by this. We're seeing it and being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean? No. And then now all these educated people are coming together and be like, no, we're going to stand up for you. Donald Trump says they're not after me, they're after you, but I'm standing in their way.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous statement. And a lot of people not believe it, but dude, this guy's a billionaire with a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. Why would he want to sacrifice his life unless he truly believed
Well, listen, I mean, being president of the United States is not exactly not cool.
But he already did it. It's already out.
Yeah. But also, let's not fool ourselves. When you're president, there's a lot of special interest in things and whatever. Like, there's a lot of perks. There's a lot of his wealth will only grow because he will be president, and therefore, before he was president, Mar-a-Lago was worth something. Now Mar-a-Lago is worth everything is worth. In large part because he was the president, and that's where he wanted to be, and that's so he was smart in that regard. By the way, every president that comes into office, you leverages their office. Even the senators and whatever, they all leverage it on some level to do better. There are ways in which I go, okay, whatever. That's part of it. And then there are other ways you go, no, that shouldn't be. For example, the fact that senators and I think even Congress people can insider trade with the stock market. What the actual fuck? What? It is a felony if you and I do that.
Yeah.
But because they're our elected officials, they're supposed to be like the most servant of people, right?
Yeah.
Like, but no. Nancy Pelosi's like, they know they're gonna go do something that's gonna affect that company, and so they're gonna sell my stock now. Great. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go make that, so buy that stock now. I mean, there's literally a guy on, I think, Instagram or Twitter, and his whole account is just following Nancy Pelosi's stock trades, and he does the same stock trades, and he's made tons of money. We should all be doing it, honestly.
No, I literally just said this. I go, why are we not doing that?
It's insane.
Also, here's another thing, and mind you, I'm only 31, and I just got into politics this year, so I'm not educated. Don't listen to me about politics. I'm just a vessel who's learning. But the one thing that I was like, hey, man, that's weird, is lobbyists.
Oh, yeah.
Bro,
the fact that they even exist.
That's the mafia.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, basically, you're just paying. You're big tobacco, or you're big pharma, or you're
How
big
is that
energy,
allowed?
and you get to go to these people, lobbyists, and you say, hey, here's a slush fund of money. Now go divvy that out to whatever legislators are going to be in our favor and, make it worth their while and make sure that they know that you're going to put a lot of money. We're going to put a lot of money into their re-election campaigns. Yeah. How is it illegal? How is it legal? Yes.
How?
And welcome to the political conversation, George.
I came from Iraq.
Insane.
We didn't think this shit was happening here, dude.
No, it's insane.
Okay, so dude, this is so exciting. Okay, now can I ask you something? Were you ever like was there any like things in Hollywood where you like stayed away from? And I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I wanted to talk to Russell about this, but I didn't want to be disrespectful with him either. The whole Diddy thing. I feel like Diddy took over the whole industry. Did you know anything about this?
No. I mean, like anyone, whether you're in the industry or not, you heard about the white parties or I didn't even know they were called freak offs until recently, or at least some of them were. Like, I always heard about the Diddy white parties, and it's like all the who's who would get invited to the Diddy white parties, and I was not the who's who.
Thank God.
I was not. Well, I know, right? In hindsight, right? Totally. No, man, it's weird. Again, totally God, like no matter how much you even might want, and I really wasn't like, oh man, I want to get invited to these parties by any stretch. Like I was like, that's a whole other like world. Like I'm not, it was, by the way, predominantly the music industry, but also, which I wasn't really a part of. And not that didn't cross over into a lot of big other celebrities in Hollywood and stuff, but like, that wasn't my vibe. I mean, I was like, I had like my community of best friends in Studio City, and we would hang at my house and play ping pong and poker. And, I had a home church that met at my house for 10 years. Like, like there's all kinds of layers of, kind of the journey that God had me on, and ultimately used all that to protect me from finding myself in a lot of situations that, let's be honest, I guarantee there are people on whatever the list of those on tape at the Diddy parties doing probably some very salacious things. And if and when, I hope when, not if, I hope that both the Epstein and Diddy lists or whatever, I hope that those do get published. Not because I want anyone to be killed over it or whatever. I think that we need transparency in this world. We cannot just constantly have all this, cloak and dagger and all of these secrets and stuff. It's not good for us. But I guarantee there's people in some of those tapes doing salacious things that, had they not even gone to the party, it's like, it's not even a part of like who they are. But when you go to a party and apparently all of those bottles of baby oil were just laced with GHB.
Yeah.
So you go to the party not knowing what you're getting into. Now you're being handed a drink with MDMA in it, not knowing. And then they're rubbing you up with GHB. And the next thing you know, by the way, it's a date rape drug. Like, people don't remember.
I don't know, man. Because my mind is like this. I go to the party. Yeah, dude, Diddy invited me. Boom, 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 and I'm there and I'm having a good time. But if somebody's squirting some oil and they're like, yo, come here, I'd be like, dog, get away from me.
Yeah, but it's peer pressure.
I don't know.
No, I didn't fall for peer pressure, dude. I didn't do it in high school. I ain't doing it at Diddy's party.
But think about it. All those people.
Good for you. But in high school, you didn't have Diddy and Jay-Z and whomever else that was standing around.
I also didn't have friends.
But anyway, I'm not making excuses for any of those people.
Yeah.
This is me, because I've thought a lot about these things, and I think it's important that how do you have grace? How do you have empathy? How can you have mercy? And that starts with empathy and being like, okay, so this person who may well be a very good person, who's never wanted to go and do anything crazy, whatever any of that stuff is that we still don't really know for sure. But all of a sudden, they're being told, like, hey, you should go to this party because it's going to be great for your career. I mean, how many people? By the way, the casting couch is a real thing. It's been going on since the beginning of Hollywood. Mm-hmm. That's why we even know this crazy term that people throw around. By the way, not even just in Hollywood. It's happened in other industries too, no doubt. But the amount of desperate people that are like, I can be a star if I just do this thing.
And you don't have the direction or the wisdom from your parents.
Exactly.
Some people, they're just naive
and by the way,
they don't
sometimes
have that.
they do, but they're still like, listen, all right, like I'll roll those dice. Mm-hmm. Like there were, Harvey Weinstein is a perfect example of this. Harvey Weinstein, lots of the women who ended up benefiting in their career because they knew what they were doing when they were like, there was other girls there were other things that he was doing and obviously criminal and whatever, but there were other women who were like, I'm going to show up at Harvey Weinstein's hotel at midnight and whatever. It's like, what do there's something involved in that. And then they reaped the benefit of whatever that was. And some of them, I think, felt horrible about it. And so when it was all going down, it was really easy for them to be like, and this happened to me, and he was a horrible person. It was like,
now you're saying it.
Exactly. Now you're saying it because they want to cleanse their soul of the decision they made.
And also, a lot of people make bad decisions in the moment where they're like low. Sometimes they think that the grass is greener on the other side. And a lot of people think if you sell your soul, the devil's like has an attorney go sign these papers. I'll take it from here. No, it's like, yo, you're stuck and maybe you don't have family around you, or maybe you're lost, maybe you're confused. And this is going to change your bloodline. So your children are not going to suffer anymore. Yeah. So I understand that. But it's tough.
But when it comes to, again, just to land the plane on the Diddy of it all, I do think it's imperative, whether it's whatever information we get from that or anything else for that matter, that we maintain being humans that see the children of God in every other human and recognize that we are called to hold accountable, but through grace, through empathy, through humility, through mercy, through forgiveness, these things. And because like I said, there were some people guaranteed that showed up to these parties, had no idea what they were getting themselves into. And the next thing they know, they don't remember the whole party because they were literally on drugs that make them not remember.
That's crazy.
And then a week later, they get a link to a video and it's like, hey, just so you know, this is what you did at the party and we'll let everybody know. And unless you kind of do what we ask you to do. And I really do think that's what all of that, Epstein and Diddy both, those were blackmail rings. That's literally what was going on.
Yeah.
They were videoing everybody getting incriminating evidence on people so that they could then hold them hostage in doing various things.
I'm going to say something super controversial, and maybe people are going to think I'm an idiot, but I don't think Jeffrey Epstein's dead.
I don't know that he is either.
Think about it. You're telling me that the most powerful man at that time that fooled colleges, fooled the most powerful people, had an island, had tapes, had records, and he was with the most influential people in the world. You think that when he didn't prepare to get locked up? You don't think that he was in his ring? He goes, 15 minutes. If every minute that I'm not out of here, I'm going to release somebody from Australia is going to send something. Somebody from London is going to send something. They don't have footage of somebody killing him, but they have footage of them removing his body. Yeah. That dude is probably watching this podcast being like, I knew somebody would figure it out.
It wasn't like the camera was dead or the camera wasn't there. Like,
the whole thing was so sketchball. Like the cameras weren't working. The two guards who were supposed to be there all night just happened to take a break during that time or what. I mean, it's so
he has a submarine.
It's so suspect. The whole thing is so
this guy's
suspect.
James Bond.
Ghislaine Maxwell's still like, where'd she go?
Yeah.
Where's she at? Still no information's come out. She hasn't turned on anybody. Like, I don't know. Listen, there's so much corruption in the world, right? Like, we've got to recognize that there's a massive amount of corruption and lies and things. I mean, listen, look at what's happening right now. All of a sudden, now, because it was too much information to keep a lid on, we're finding out UFOs and UAPs and potentially aliens, whether they're from other planets or whether they're from other dimensions or whether they're just from our own dimension and our own time, but they're from the future and they're traveling back in time or what. Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions about all of this stuff.
And nobody's talking about it.
Well, there are people that are talking about it.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you would have heard this news in 2011, you would have been like, hold the phone. I'm not going to college. I got to listen to this. Yeah. But now we're like, yeah, well, who cares? Diddy's like doing this. So it's like everything is like, it's so much at once. It's like you don't know what's real or what's fake.
Well, that's the thing. It's more that. It's more that because all of our trusted or what used to be trusted news sources, legacy media, legacy news, it's like they're all just reporting a lot of not true stuff. And so you're like, well, I can't trust you. And then you try to go find other sources, alternative sources online. But a lot of those are like, I don't know how to verify whether or not you're real. Mm-hmm. So you end up in this sea of information and misinformation and disinformation and whatever it is. But I think that that's why it's on us to go and actually do the research as best you can and go to sources that you believe to be people with integrity. Like Bobby Kennedy, for example. Bobby knows way more than me about all of these things. I don't need to know all of those things as detailed as he knows them, so long as I know his heart well enough to know that he's not misleading me with the information he has. Could he be wrong? He could. But he's also somebody who says, I will change my mind if I'm given better evidence that shows me otherwise. Yeah. But all the evidence he's seen up to this point is we have not tested these vaccines really at all enough. And we're giving them more and more and more and more and more to children. And coincidentally, we went from having 1 in 10,000 or 100,000 kids having autism to, in 2 years from now, 1 in 3.
Yeah.
And that is only correlated to the rise in amounts of vaccines that we're plugging into these little babies. Like, within minutes, giving kids a hepatitis B vaccine. Why?
I mean, they might go to the Diddy party. They got to protect themselves.
I just saw
You know
a video
what? I take it back. They're right. You never know.
That's the one I think they
That
should
could
just
be
leave on the table.
Hey. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's important that we continue to stay awake and keep our eyes open and continue to walk in trust and continue to know that God Almighty is above all of it.
Amen.
But that doesn't mean we turn off our brain.
Nope.
Like keep digging, keep figuring it out. You want to be a useful instrument in this world, in this existence. Inform yourself, dig deeper. Also, don't just get lost in your own confirmation biases. Don't find yourself in echo chambers. Like, listen to other people's opinions. Like, there's so many people that are so just like, nah, you voted for Trump. Doesn't matter who you are. I don't care why. You're evil. You're one of his henchmen Nazis because he's Hitler, and that's what it is. It's like, what?
You said the echo chambers, which is such a powerful statement because the comment sections could be that. Like, you think that you're siding with the world, but it's just technically the algorithm knows where you are. Yeah. And you know what? I was telling this other kid the other day, and he goes, man, I hate what's on my algorithm. And I'm like, do we blame the algorithm? Or is that just math on what you like? And it's...
Well, it's a little bit of both. It's kind of like a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, let's say for a hot second, you're really into tiny homes. And so you go and search a bunch of tiny homes. Well, me too.
Yeah.
But let's say you go search a bunch of tiny homes in a short amount of time. And the algorithm's like, this guy loves tiny homes. I'm going to give him nothing but tiny homes. And you're like, I don't want nothing but tiny homes.
Yeah, say it.
I want some tiny homes.
Yeah.
But so it's not... Yes, we are somewhat complicit in it, but the algorithms just need to get smarter and be like, we'll give you a little bit of that, or we'll give you but also I did hear that Instagram just announced, or they're about to drop a new feature where you can reset your algorithm entirely.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So you can clear it out and then you can start fresh at any point you need to. So
that's cool. I like that.
I like my algorithm. I enjoy mine.
I like my algorithm. Puppies and rainbows and tiny homes.
So many
I've
tiny
created
homes.
a really good place, you know?
Yeah.
But to kind of give you a little creative trivia, if you had Shazam and Chuck meet together in the same universe and they had to go on a mission together, what do you think it would be?
Say AI had to do this.
By the way, AI will do this. There's going to be somebody listening to this right now, and they're going to be like, I'm going to ChatGPT and Midjourney, and I'm going to see what this looks like. And we will find you online. What would that? I don't know, honestly, like, because they're so like very similar in that it's me. And they have very similar hearts.
Exactly.
But Billy Batson, is after all still a teenager and kind of like has that teenager kind of vibe. And then and Chuck doesn't. I mean, he's got the intersect, but doesn't really. I mean, it's toward the end of the show or whatever. But
yeah, don't spoil it.
I'm still trying to make a Chuck movie at some point.
I want to circle back to that.
Yeah.
So
please, yeah.
But so I honestly have no idea. Shazam would be able to basically do anything he needed or wanted to do. He's a superhero that can do everything. So I think Chuck would just be like, all right, so you're going to do, okay, cool. I'll be here. You're going to go take, you don't, Kung Fu? You don't need to go. Okay, you go do what you got to do.
Let's go back to the movie idea because I know 2 years ago you were talking about that on, I think it was Kelly Clarkson.
I've been talking about it literally since before we even finished the show. I was trying to convince my writers and producers and executives, like, guys, things are going online. Before Veronica Mars did their crowdfund and everything, I was like, we should be why? We're struggling staying on television. What if we just went to our existing fan base and said, hey, for $2, you can buy the movie and we'll make Chuck movies.
Why didn't they do that?
Because they don't think like that. I don't know, bro.
I mean, to be honest, you're way ahead of your time because...
I was.
Yeah.
I'm a genius.
That can sing and loves tiny homes.
A genius who can sing and who loves tiny homes and cul-de-sacs.
Did you watch Ed, Edd and Eddy?
No.
No reason.
no.
I'm shooting.
That was a
numbers
little, a little after my time, I think. A little after my time.
What kind of cartoons did you grow up on? Tom and Jerry? Did I shoot too far?
I mean, it was literally in the 60s. But if truth be told, yeah, I did watch some Tom and Jerry.
Flintstones?
But Flintstones, well, yeah, listen, there was a whole bunch of Hanna-Barbera stuff, like the Jetsons and the Flintstones and whatever. On Disney Channel, though, like, or I guess even on network television, there was like Tailspin and DuckTales and Rescue Rangers, Chippendales Rescue Rangers.
What the heck are you saying right now?
I know, they're all like. By the way, this is one of the most amazing things, like where you can determine like generational gaps.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what cartoons did you grow up with?
Yeah.
Because it's only like little 4-year windows, right? Like obviously they Venn diagram and overlap a little bit, but. No Ed, and Eddie for me. But you're literally 13 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So it's like what you were. I was. I don't know, playing Nintendo 64 when you were, watching your cartoons or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching those cartoons.
Now, are you still gaming?
A little bit, yeah.
What's your kind of favorite game?
I don't know. I like first-person shooters a lot. Like Nintendo 64 GoldenEye. That's like where I really started playing like first-person shooters. I was like, oh my god, this
Is GoldenEye the James Bond
one? Yeah.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. And then that kind of got me into that. And then I actually put down gaming for a little while because I was like, I spent so much time playing video games.
World of Warcraft type of style or like what?
No, I know.
Counter-Strike?
But I wasn't really a PC gamer. So Counter-Strike was only like if you had a PC.
Yeah.
I was always a console guy. So, Nintendo 64. And then I didn't really play for a while. And then Xbox came out. And Halo came out with Xbox, and I was over at a buddy's place, and they were playing Halo, and I was like, "Give me Master Chief and a Warthog any day." And then I was right back, like just hooked. I was right back in
for a
it.
long time.
Yeah.
Are you still on it?
No, I stopped. I played Halo through like probably Halo 3 or something, and I was like, I still have a lot of love for the franchise and whatnot.
Well, I was about to say they just released like their new graphics, and it's like insane.
Oh, bro! Every single iteration of these new consoles just gets more insane and more insane. Which is again why I knew years ago we were just heading toward that singularity of like eventually it will be photorealism. It's not going to be. You won't be able to tell, like Super Mario, clearly 8 bits. That's not real life. Super Nintendo, 16-bit, but not real life. N64, not real life. Cool, but not real life. But you just keep going up. And eventually you're like, I'm looking at screens sometimes. I'm like, the lighting and the movement. I'm like, this might as well be a documentary. Like, it's insane. Yeah. But we're just going to keep going there. But yeah, so with games, I don't know. Like, I like playing first-person shooters and adventure games, and I really like The Last of Us. The first and second game, both. I loved those games. Again, post-apocalyptic kind of zombie adventure games. Those are fun.
I want to talk about this two things because I don't want to forget this. The new project that you're working on that you're about to release.
The Unbreakable Boy.
Yes, and then you were saying that you're going to go to this where they all meet together. I forgot the word.
Convention?
Convention.
Yeah.
My first question is, how much do you enjoy conventions? I feel like
I love them. Aside from being a great way to make ancillary income or whatever, I just find like when you're doing theater, your audience is right there. You are having a communal experience with them. You tell a joke, they laugh, hopefully. You finish a big number, and they applaud, or whatever all of it is. And then even I typically, after every show, even on Broadway, I go to the stage door and I'll thank people for coming, and I'll sign playbills and take photos and stuff like that. When you have that type of an experience, you get to close the loop with your fans right then.
Yep.
You are giving them something, they are appreciating that something, and you get to like it. You get
it's
nice,
like a lightning.
right? Yeah,
it's a feeling. It's insane.
But when you do film and television, you're working in a vacuum the whole time. You have no idea ultimately how it's all going to cut together, and then how is that going to resonate with any particular audience member?
Yeah.
Until at which point you meet that particular audience member, right? And fan conventions, Comic-Cons and whatnot, are the most kind of efficient way of meeting the majority of fans in one given place. they're told, hey, the one I'm going to this weekend is in Columbus, Ohio. And so in Columbus, they've been advertising, here's, Hayden Christensen, Zachary Levi, and all these other various actors and voice actors and different people come this weekend. So anyone in the Columbus, Ohio area or around there or whatever. By the way, sometimes people travel from way the heck away because that just happens to be the one that works with their schedule and they can pay for the travel. But I'll have a line of wonderful people that, on the surface, it's one of the wackiest jobs ever because basically I bring like my own little Bluetooth speaker and I play my tunes and I'm like playing my music and really lovely souls wait very patiently to pay me very good money to scribble on pictures of my own face. Like it's wacky that I get paid to do it, right? But years ago it dawned on me, I was like, really, if you boil it all down, really as an actor, what you're being paid to do is you're getting paid to love on people. Like they have already done the loving on their end. They have already invested their time and money and energy into watching your TV shows or your movies or, how many Chuck fans or Shazam fans or Tangled fans or Miss Maisel fans or, whatever, whatever my catalog of work is, my resume of work is, those fans, I get an opportunity to close the loop with them. I get to look at them. They get to meet me and their jazz and I get to look them in the eye and be like, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. I would not have a job were it not for you people believing in the things that I can and continuing to, And so I love conventions for that reason. And also I get to bump into other actors and people that I have a lot of respect for that are friends of mine. And, there's a whole kind of like ecosystem and all of that.
Such a sweet feeling. That's so sweet.
Do you think you're more recognized at these conventions for playing Shazam or like Chuck?
It's a really good question. It depends on the convention, I think, because some places they're just like literally geographically they're just massive Chuck fans or massive Shazam fans, or to be honest, like I oftentimes at my like I'll. Is that music? Is that next
Sometimes
door?
there's a guy that rides around his bike with music.
I was like, all right, we got a little theme song on. When I do, I'll always do like a Q&A, like a panel at all the conventions I do. And I love asking the audience, just like show of hands, like who's here because they're this fan or that fan or whatever. Bro, Tangled, the amount of Tangled fans, and maybe it just sounds louder because it's a lot of women, also guys, but like, it's like, wow, it's like a really big, But I love it. Like to me, it doesn't matter how you got there. I'm just glad that you got there and that we get to have that time together.
So when we recently last year, we did live shows and we got to experience what you're saying. Like, for example, 300 people in a comment section to us is like, oh, that didn't do well. But 300 people in a room watching,
bro.
whoa, it's like insane. You get to shake hands with them, talk to them. Our audience knows us for who we are. So when they talk to us, sometimes it's so funny because like they'll talk to us like we've hung out with them forever. And I'm like, oh, I have no idea who you are. And then I have to break that wall. That's cool because it's like, it's easier for me to go and speak to them. Do you see a difference? Like, could you spot how they notice you versus like, oh, they notice me from Chuck or Shazam or Tangled? Do they approach you differently from the characters, or they're all kind of the same type of approach?
I think it's pretty much all the same, unless they're specifically coming up to me and they're wearing my outfit or, or like something very indicative of like, oh, you're a Tangled fan. Like they're dressed as Rapunzel and they have a frying pan and they want me to sign the frying pan. It's like, they're clearly not there for Shazam. But also some people that they might be dressed in a particular way just because that's what they wanted to cosplay as, but they're a fan of a lot of the different things, And then, by the way, to your second question, the project that I shot now 4 years ago, but will finally be coming out in February, is called The Unbreakable Boy. And it's a true story. It was based on a book written by the father of this family, the Lorettes. Basically, it was a couple. They met. When they were younger, and they're like on their third date, they got pregnant, and they didn't know what to do. But they were like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's figure this out. We want to move forward and have the baby, and they didn't rush into marriage, but they were like, we're definitely going to choose to have this baby, but then we'll keep figuring out what our relationship is, and so they had their first child, and There's a lot of crying going on with their child, and while they're trying to navigate, their own relationship and their own stuff, but the kid was crying like nonstop. And then they eventually figured out that their oldest son, had osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bones disease. So, and he got it from his mom, and she was terrified that he might get it, but he in fact did get it. But then they're like, okay, well, at least we got that covered. Okay, let's move on. They had a second son, no osteogenesis imperfecta in him. And then some more years go by, and then their oldest son starts kind of presenting with some atypical type of behavior, and they don't really know what's going on. And then they go have him tested, and he came back that he was autistic and on the autistic spectrum. And so the movie is about this couple who are navigating their own internal traumas and issues and whatever, their relationship with one another, and their two sons, one of them does not have brittle bones or autism, who really is kind of like he gets lost in all of that stuff, like I have a lot of love for him. But the main character really is their son, Austin, who I believe gives one of the most true performances for a child who has autism, who still has such an incredible lust for life and love of people, and how navigating all of that as a family is so transformative. And there's some kind of faith elements to it a little bit, but not, again, heavy-handed, like we're going to preach you about Jesus. It's none of that stuff. Because I honestly would never do the movie if it was that stuff. But it's a really, really wonderful little movie, and I'm just so excited for people to watch it. And particularly, I think because that I don't know of another movie that's ever really tackled autism like this. And autism, unfortunately, it has become so much more rampant within our society, and it touches all of our lives, whether we have whether we ourselves are autistic, or we have a child who is autistic, or a relative, or a friend, or our kids have friends, or whatever it is. Like, it is ubiquitous in our society. So I think it's a really powerful movie, particularly now more than ever, for people to be able to go and see and feel through. And so it comes out February 20th.
Well,
20th of February?
I'll put a voiceover of you.
Yeah. February.
We'll put the right one.
It sounds like there's so many layers and so interesting. I can't wait to watch it.
It's very layered. Yeah.
And this is not the first time that you've played a movie that was based on a true story. You did a movie before. It's called Not Without Hope.
Not Without Hope. We shot. Hasn't come out yet, but that's also a true story. Really gnarly true story about these four friends who in 2009 went on a fishing trip off the coast of Florida, and they capsized their boat, and then a storm rolled in, and 3 of the 4 died. And I played the guy who lives, and it's
Let's go.
Gnarly. It's a gnarly movie.
Was that really hard to play?
Very
like,
hard.
A true story?
It was very hard. Yeah, it was a hard movie to shoot in general because we were in like this massive water tank shooting the majority of the movie at night, and it was freezing. And I mean, I was actually the lucky one because I was wearing like full pants and long sleeves, and I had a wetsuit underneath. But a lot of the other guys did not. They were just like. I felt very bad for them.
Really?
But it's like that Unbreakable boy, the entire family can and should watch that movie. Not Without Hope, definitely an adult movie. Definitely not something for kids. But I had also done, like I think I had mentioned earlier, American Underdog, which was a true story where I played Kurt Warner, the NFL quarterback. That was all true. And then recently, this past summer, I shot a film called Sarah's Oil, which I believe will come out next Christmas. That's also a wonderful true story about this young black girl in Tulsa, Oklahoma in like 1910 or something. She was 11 in 1910 or she was 10 in 1911. But the point is, right around that time, she was about 10 years old. And she ended up getting a plot of land because she and her family were previously slaves of the Choctaw tribe or Muskogee tribe or something like that. And then when the U.S. outlawed slavery, then all the tribes outlawed slavery. And then when the U.S. gave back land to some of the tribes, then the tribes divvied that out to all their tribal members. And so this young girl ended up getting like 160 acres of what the U.S. thought was like kind of crap land because you couldn't grow anything on it or whatever. But she was a spiritual precocious, intelligent, charming young girl, and she could read and write and everything because she went to a special school, and she was reading the paper and she saw that the oil boom was coming across the nation. It was coming through Oklahoma, and she went to her land and she prayed over her land, and she believed that God told her that there was a bunch of oil in her land, and then she went and hired a wildcat or the independent oil guys to help her go see if that was true. And not only was it true, she not only had oil in her land, she had like the largest oil preserve in all of North America and leased it
Is
to
this a true
Rockefeller,
story?
and she became the richest woman in America as this like 11-year-old black girl in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah,
This is a real
true story. True story. And nobody knows it. Nobody
That's
knows it.
incredible.
So we just shot that movie. So I do love a good true story. You know what
Wow. I mean,
There's
you
something
told
about
us you wanted to start doing that. I mean, you already did it.
Yeah.
You should have
4
said,
or 5
I've
of
been
them.
doing it. I have so many questions, all for all 3 of them. One, Unbreakable Boy. Did you guys lean on hiring somebody who was autistic for that kid?
Well, so yes and no. So
That's hurtful.
well,
That's either the guy took it as a compliment or like not.
So obviously, I mean, that was the original. The original search was, can we find a child that actually possesses this quality? The young boy that we ended up casting, his parents said that they don't believe that he was on the spectrum. So from a technical aspect, I guess he was not on the spectrum, but I believe that he, to me, definitely exhibited certain behaviors that very well could be, if not they being on the spectrum, could be confused with being kind of behavior or whatnot that could be on the spectrum. I mean, listen, I think I'm on the spectrum at this point. Like I've had ADHD my entire life, and again, I don't know that that's on the autistic spectrum, but I
think there's a scale, and I think that if you're really, really talented, which you are, there's sometimes it takes a lot of focusing on this side of the brain, and
Sure,
it lacks.
yeah.
Like I wasn't really good at schoolwork, but my God, if you tell me something, I'll remember it forever, and I could tell it in a vivid way.
Yeah.
How old is the kid? Like what ballpark?
Jake, during the movie, I mean, I think he was about 10. I want to say he was about 10, 11, something like that. And then that was 4 years ago. I mean, he's probably close to 16 or something like, probably shot up like a weed. They grow so fast, these kids. But yeah, he's about 10, like 10 in the movie.
And then something Hope. I apologize.
Not Without Hope.
Not Without Hope.
Yeah.
Did you have to like train mentally for this type? And what was the hardest role that took you a lot of focus to really jump into this character? What was your hardest one to get into, or more obstacles, or more training?
I don't know. I mean, with Not Without Hope, I mean, the movie starts, very calm and normal, and then, but very quickly you get into craziness of it, and it's not anything I've ever experienced. I mean, I've never, thank God, been capsized on the hull of a boat in the middle of the ocean, thinking I was going to die. I mean, so that was definitely an intense place to go to mentally and emotionally, and to watch my fellow actors and the characters they're playing one by one succumb to hypothermia and die, and and hypothermia. By the way, dying from hypothermia.
It ain't cool. Sorry.
No, like legitimately, like you lose your mind. Like people, like you go crazy, And so that was, all of that was really heavy. I would say, emotionally, that was probably one of the hardest films I've had to do. But then intellectually, I don't know. I like, of all of the roles that I played, a lot of them I was able to pull a lot of who either my past experience or who I am as a person or whatever. They felt quite comfortably in my wheelhouse. Like with Sarah's Oil, I didn't know anything about the oil industry, right? So I learned a good bit about all of that stuff and kind of how all that operated. But Yeah, nothing too crazy up to this point.
On any of these movies, did you ever speak to the real person who it's about? You know, the character you're playing?
Yeah. Well, I talked to the gentleman I played in Not Without Hope. He actually visited set, which was intense. Like, I don't even know what was going
that
through.
traumatizing for him?
I don't know. I don't know. He was there literally watching people portraying his friends
That's
dying.
crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. But
did you feel uncomfortable acting in front of him like that?
No, I didn't. I mean, I knew that he knew what he was getting into, so I was like, I'm not gonna like be weird around it. Like, he knows what he knows what he's.
Did you ever ask him like, how did you feel in this moment right here?
Oh yeah, I asked him a lot about that stuff. You know, he's a man of few words.
I bet.
And you know, and ultimately, you know, what we were portraying was a version of what happened. I mean, he wrote a book about it, and then a script was written based on that book, and that had some differences in it as well.
Yeah. I wonder if that upsetted him.
Maybe. I don't know.
Such traumatizing.
I don't know.
Like a raw
I mean,
version.
it might have even been cathartic on some level. It might have been helpful. You know, like you know, in order to release a lot of that trauma, you gotta have to revisit it sometimes. Playing Kurt Warner, I got to hang out with Kurt and his wife Brenda a lot, and they're still friends to this day. And so that was really fun. And the Lorette family, who we played in Unbreakable Boy, we got to hang out with them as well. So
what about the young lady who struck oil at the age of 11?
Well, no, she passed away. Sarah Rector was her name. She moved her whole family up to I think St. Louis or Kansas City or something like that, and then lived out the rest of her days there. And I think she passed away in maybe the 60s or something like that.
But did you ever have any conversations with any of her family members?
No. It was very difficult to track down a lot of, you know, I think once she passed and a lot of the money started to kind of dissipate out into whatever. And Lord knows how many people probably took advantage of them as well. I mean, you know, there's so many. I mean,
Vultures.
even with her wells. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Killers of the Flower Moon, but you know, there were a lot of really horrible people that took advantage of a lot of the Native American population and Black population of this country. A lot of that we know of, but so you know, I don't know, but we didn't unfortunately get to meet anybody in the Rector family.
Before we land this plane on this podcast,
Yes.
I just have one question for you, just so people can have an amazing takeaway and learn from you. You're in the same field that you were when you were not truly feeling yourself and you weren't in a happy place. And now you're here and you're conquering, thank God. What advice would you give somebody who's really hurt, confused, lost, broken, but knows they should be in this space? What advice would you give them to get to a place of happiness quicker?
Well, I think almost all of it comes down to, are you loving yourself? I had kind of made mention to it earlier, but so I went almost all of my adult life. I mean, I'm 44 now, but at 37, I was a grown-ass man, and I had a complete mental breakdown, and I didn't want to live, and I didn't know why. And I was blessed enough to have the finances to go away to this super intensive life-changing, life-saving therapy. And while I was there, I learned that I didn't love myself. And that blew my mind, because I had heard people talk about self-love and stuff prior to that, and I didn't feel like I ever actively hated myself. I never, you know, I was like, I think I like myself. I go play basketball and play video games and hang out with my friends and whatever it is. But it was really jarring when I realized that my self-talk, again, was so toxic. If I ever screwed up or I wasn't accomplishing what I thought I was supposed to accomplish, or, you know, was failing or whatever, the amount of the way I would destroy myself in my own words, in my own mind, and in my own heart was just outrageous. And when I was at this therapy, I would, you know, one of the therapists that asked me when I had this breakthrough, they're like, you know, how do you talk to yourself when you think you're failing or whatever? And I told them, you know, you fucking idiot, you know, basically a lot of the same things that I was hearing from my parents when I was growing up. And they're like, okay, do you ever use those words with anybody, people that you love, your friends and family? I was like, God, no. I would, not that I was some perfect saint or whatever, but I would never be you fucking idiot. You know, the ways in which I would talk to myself. I was like, of course not. And they go, so why do you do that to yourself? wouldn't that be indicative of that you don't actually love yourself? And it was like this total, it seems so simple, but it was something I had never put together. And many other things, by the way, that I learned there. But I really do think that at the bottom of it all, right? Like, you can do all kinds of work on yourself, but if you don't think you're deserving of that work, if you don't think that you're deserving of a better life, of a healthier, happier you, then none of that's going to stick. None of it's going to mean anything. You're going to go nowhere. You've got to start at the root of it. And the root of it is you are not just capable, you are worthy. We are all worthy of love. We are all worthy because I believe we are all love. Like we are extensions of God's love, whether we like it or not. Some people are not great representations of that. Some people are much better representations of that. But God uses anything and everything, like the Force in Star Wars, in and through all things. And the sooner you recognize that, oh my gosh, I'm an extension of God. Like I this miracle of a life, this mech suit that I get to walk around in, right, is just an encapsulation of my soul, which is piloting this thing. This isn't me. This is this cool thing, but it's not me. Once this passes away, my soul is not attached to this thing. My soul will, hopefully go on to be with God. Amen. In perpetuity. And so to recognize the divine in ourselves and other people, to see that God's fingerprints are upon you, and that, oh my gosh, of course then, therefore, you are worthy of that love. Of course you are. And by the way, so is everyone else. And so is everyone else, even the shitheads, even the people that we go, who and why is this person and why do they do what they're doing? Mm-hmm. I wish they would stop. Absolutely, I agree with you. But even they are still an extension of God's power and reach and touch. And so, and then one might ask, well, how do you go about loving yourself, right? That's the hard part. But I think that starts with capturing your thoughts. When you start, and I do this to this day, when I start to really just gang up on myself, when I start to beat up on myself, when I start to, the Bible talks about it, like taking your thoughts captive. Amen. Like, do not give them a foothold. Dude, that's the enemy. That's the darkness. The darkness wants you to believe that you are worthless, that you are not loved, that you're, by the way, by yourself, that nobody is an idiot like you. Nobody's suffering like you. Like, you shouldn't talk to anybody about it because it's only going to make it worse. That is the lies of the darkness. And so we have got to be able to filter that and say, no. I know that I am beloved. I'm beloved by my Creator. I was fearfully and wonderfully created, knit together in my mother's womb. This I know, which means I'm deserving of that love, and apply that to yourself, and the grace and the forgiveness and the empathy and the mercy and all of the things that come along with that. In doing that, when you really start to soften to yourself, and then you can start to really, then I think I can apply that. I can apply eating better to myself. I can apply getting up and moving my body more. I can apply these because you know what? I'm worthy of that. I don't need to keep, oh, you idiot, I'm not going to start because I'm a piece of shit and I'm not worthy of it. No, you are. Go live that life. Go live that best life and loving yourself and loving others.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I was walking around. My wife is the only one who would really, really know this. But there was a point in my life I felt exactly how you felt. I got so anxious sometimes I would just pass out. I wouldn't be able to express myself, so I'd bottle it in and I would overthink, and I would just shut down. I fell down the stairs once, and I was like, okay, this is getting out of hand. This is dangerous. I'm walking around this neighborhood, and I'm just looking at God, and I'm like, why do I hate myself so much? Like, why do I love everybody around me, but I hate myself? And it's because I know that I'm able to make better decisions or be better, but I don't. And I'm watching myself make the wrong choices, make the wrong turn. And so I just go, how could he forgive me? How could he love me when I know who I am and how evil I am? And it wasn't an audible voice, but it was just like poured into my heart that if God said I'm worthy to be forgiven and I am forgiven, who am I to tell myself I'm not? And so I had to practice to not lean in my own heart or understand my own thoughts, but to lean on his thoughts. Just because I feel like I'm a stupid piece of shit, that doesn't mean the Creator who created me thinks that I am that. Amen. And so I came to the conclusion that my first step isn't to know everything about God for me to walk with God. The first step was, how much does my Creator love me?
Yeah.
And then through that, I was able to give myself grace.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a world where we have to work for it, but Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath, and he wants you to rest and know that the work is already done. And so it was such an honor and a privilege to talk to you. It really,
Bless
really
you, man.
is.
Right back at you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being a light, because, and I don't mean to be cheesy when I say this, but there's very far and few that are like you, man. And you know what? I know you deal with what you used to deal with, because the devil doesn't like that you're teaching people to love themselves. So I pray that if you ever needed a friend or anybody to just circle back with or talk to you about our Savior, or to look at you and give you the flowers you deserve, we will always be in your corner, forever and always.
Thank you.
Forever and always.
I appreciate that. And I would just, I mean, it's semantics perhaps, but I do think that, you know, perhaps we are not lights, but rather we are vessels that the light shines through, you know? I think it's an important distinction, which is not to say that we are not shining. We, you know, like we are reflections of that light, but the light does not start within me.
You know what? I have a saying for this. When you wear jewelry and it reflects in it, you know, you get, it bounce off your light. I say a man, for him to reflect Jesus' light, must position his heart. So that way the light could shine onto him. Through it's a reflection.
Absolutely.
So I absolutely agree. And let me tell you something, man. You've been positioning yourself in a very dark place, very bright.
Thanks.
Very, very bright.
I tried to.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, brother.
You play basketball?
I do. Well, I did a lot years ago when I lived here in LA. We played lots of pickup basketball, but I haven't played for a minute.
I'd love to shoot hoops and just pick your brain offside camera.
Let's do it. Well, listen, I'm back. I'm back here in Southern California, like through Christmas break, and then for quite a bit, we're going to be up in Ventura a lot, and I'll be coming down to LA a good bit. So
I'll fly back.
We'll figure it out.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching season 2. This is the end of season 2.
Wow.
Glory to be to God. And season 3, I'm so excited to show you guys who we have lined up. It is incredible. Thank you
they
again.
got Gene Kelly back from the dead.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next year.